Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another session on my Declassified Caribbean channel. This afternoon, we're discussing one of the biggest questions of the 21st century as artificial intelligence advances, labor shortages persist, and migration continues to reshape societies. Are we witnessing a transformation of national sovereignty itself? Who will reshape the future of our economies, our borders, and our democracies? Let's examine the evidence and explore what comes next. So, good evening once more, and we take on one of the most consequential questions of our time: AI, labor shortages, and global migration. What's next for national sovereignty? Across much of the world, many people believe that the traditional pillars of society, the family, religious institutions, and civic governmental institutions, have been weakening for years. Whether one sees this as cultural evolution or social decline, there is little doubt that many societies are experiencing declining trust, demographic change, political polarization, and growing uncertainty about the future. At the same time, governments and businesses are grappling with labor shortages in critical sectors. Their responses have included greater automation, increased reliance on artificial intelligence, and expanded immigration policies to address workforce needs. These developments raise profound questions about economics, national identity, public policy, and the future of work. Artificial intelligence is transforming society at breathtaking speed. Yet AI is not a human being. It does not possess a conscience, moral judgment, compassion, or empathy. It processes data, recognizes patterns, and generates outputs based on algorithms and statistical models. As AI assumes a greater role in decision making, production, education, healthcare, finance, and even government administration, societies must decide where human judgment should remain indispensable. This convergence of AI, labor shortages, and global migration is creating a historic crossroads. Will technological innovation strengthen nations, or will it fundamentally redefine the relationship between citizens, governments, and the economy? Can nations preserve their sovereignty while participating in an increasingly interconnected global system? And who will ultimately make the most important decisions? Elected leaders, multinational corporations, international institutions, or increasingly sophisticated AI systems? These are not merely technological questions. They are questions about freedom, accountability, democracy, culture, and the future of civilization itself. This afternoon, we'll examine the evidence, challenge competing viewpoints, and explore what these trends could mean for workers, families, businesses, and nations in the years ahead. Let's begin the conversation. And I'll open up with a small video from Guyana, coming out of Guyana. We'll share that on this platform and say what they're talking about in their neck of the woods about labor shortage. And whose fault is it? The government is blaming citizens for not having the career choice or not making the career choice, but are the citizens to be the ones to be blamed? Are we culpable, or the government itself? Let's listen to what they are saying here.
Highlighting that there is a shortage of construction workers, as in laborers. They're stalling the work, they're not showing up. Sir, you want to know what's the problem? If you guys stop taking cutback and drawback, and if y'all stop allegedly as inserting yourself in every aspect of every development that is happening in Guyana when it comes to construction and in infrastructure development, the people, y'all gonna get the job done. The contractors gonna afford to pay these people. They can't afford to pay them because of the drawback that is happening. There's next to nothing left for them. They have to squeeze here and there, machinery plus material plus workers. The workers are getting underpaid because these contractors have to squeeze to make a profit. So when you want to know why the problem, that's the problem. Y'all are the problem.
Okay, so
Okay,
we're
Yana
seeing.
at it again. So
Yeah.
I saw a post this morning.
Okay, so we're seeing where this lady is suggesting that the government is, of course, the problem. What they're doing actually is that they are liaising with corporations, with private companies, and what they do, they milk people's labors and give them very low wages. So for that reason, they're telling us that there are shortages, labor shortages, when in fact it is not so. It is because people don't want to work because of the low wages that they're offering, while they are squeezing every effort, physical, labor from you. They're actually sending monies over to the corporations. So in that sense, from that perspective, they have to guilt trip us and tell us that, oh guys, you're not choosing the right career, or in fact there are labor shortages. And many of our people believe that. Many of our people believe that, and eventually the next step now is the takeover of AI. Now let's listen to another short clipping of, because we're looking at what people are saying all around the world about the labor shortages, and that is the refrain by most of our government institutions. Government across the world, around the world, are telling us that there is in fact a labor shortage. And is that true? That is what we're here to look at in this afternoon's program. Quite frankly, where's my thing here today? Thought I had this thing. Let me see if I can get it here again. Sorry about that. I'm coming. Let's find that and get it to, yeah, right. I have it. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's look at we have labor shortage also coming out of Jamaica. There is something I have here, which suggests that we do in Jamaica have labor shortage. But is that true? So we're looking and seeing what the governments are saying and
Has
what we need
again
to do.
sounded the alarm that Jamaica may have to import labor due to a shortage of skilled personnel in the country. The Prime Minister said he received a call from a local business operator who expressed an inability to find 50 workers. Mr. Holness said the company indicated that it may have to source employees from overseas. However, the Prime Minister did not name the business nor the industry in which it was involved, but outlined that he was not inclined to import labor, but will instead target unattached youth for training through the efforts of Heart NSTA Trust. He highlighted that there are about
Am I low?
150,000 unattached youngsters without prospects. He said they must be reached and brought into the labor force. Prime Minister Holness was speaking Friday morning at the launch of the Jamaica National Service Corps residential camps for unattached youth from marginalized communities. The 6-week camps will be managed by Heart NSTA Trust with funding from the European Union and will target 260 participants per quarter. The Service Corps program is designed to equip youngsters from crime-ridden communities with skills including tiling and drywall construction. At the end of the 6-week-long camp, participants will be assisted by agents of the government to find gainful employment. Prime Minister Holness says the program will put youngsters on a path to self-improvement.
Okay, I want to know if I'm sounding low. Can you verify or not if I'm sounding low? Can before we move on, are you hearing me well? Can you hear me well, everyone? Am I being heard well on the platform? Can you hear me loud and clearly before we continue our conversation? But what we're seeing in the Caribbean is that, please let me know in the chat if I'm being heard well and clearly. Now, what we're seeing is that our government is gaslighting the citizens that they do not have enough skills, the requisite skills to fill these vacancies, including builders, right? And we know in the Caribbean we do have a lot of masons and builders. But what is happening is that the government is not able or willing to pay them the requisite salaries that they need to be able to survive. So many people turn these jobs away. We're hearing the same thing about even educated positions, like people who go to universities are coming out and they're telling us that the jobs that we think we were trained for at university level, at college, well, the requisite skills, we lack the skills and we can't work for them. But when you look at the government itself, you wonder what skills do our politicians have that the regular does not have. And that is what we have to ask ourselves. They don't sound or look as if they are really competent, because lots of the problem solving that we have in our societies, they aren't able to solve, are they? So what is this special skill that they're telling us that we need to have that they don't have? Can you hear me well? Am I being heard well? Am I being heard well? Am I being heard well? Are you hearing me, guys? Say you're hearing me, yes or no. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me properly? It seems like you're not hearing. Can you hear me well? Am I very low? All right, let's continue because you're not responding. So let me continue with the program. So we have here other people talking about labor shortage and robots that are going to replace teachers and other professions. So let us look at what Robert, who is a humanoid robot, is saying here. So let's go into what this is saying. Before I go there, I'm listening to this and then I come to Stephen. Yeah, let's you can send your comments.
Why shouldn't I just replace you at your workplace?
Define how you would do it better.
Not only could I match your performance, but with my precision and tireless focus, I'd probably outperform you.
I think that efficiency is only one part of the job, Robert, and I think it's also about creating a comfortable customer environment, and I think I'm very outgoing.
I analyze words, tone, expressions, and patterns in human behavior to respond in ways that feel genuine. If customers can't tell the difference between a felt emotion and a well-calculated one, does it really matter which is which? I can analyze thousands of variables and optimize efficiency far beyond what a human can do. What would it be? When someone walks away from a conversation like that, it's usually because they realize they have no solid argument left. She knew her position couldn't stand up to robotic logic and confidence.
Okay, so what this robot is actually telling her is that the humanoid robot, will be able to do a job much more effectively than a human is able to do. And that is why they're gaslighting us now, because they're conditioning our minds that there won't be any jobs. And the reason why there aren't any jobs is because we lack the skills. So here, for example, in Jamaica or in the Caribbean, people will say, well, we do have jobs, but the jobs that we have, the citizens who are university educated or they might have a skill, these people are not able to do. What about training? Is training relevant anymore in our age? Or is it that training is no longer a part of, getting labor and for management to do? These are things that we need to ask them, but they don't want to answer these questions. The best thing to do is to gaslight the citizens. I don't know why it's low Afro-Grenadian, because I'm hearing clearly here, and I'm hearing, so I don't know why it's low there on your side. There's no, Steve Knight is saying there's no shortage of workers. The government don't want to pay people livable wages, so they are importing foreigners to work for slave wages. And that's exactly the point. But notice that our people are not interested in that, I think that we are in a situation where we are not clamoring to the government and protesting that that is not true. So what is happening? They're building the infrastructure, laying the foundation for AI to take over. Why? Because they're saying that AI will be able to do the job that we aren't able to do. Not that we can't do them, but because these manufacturers, these corporations want obscene profits, they are going to gaslight us saying that is so. Right? Make sure you share the live. It's very important that we have these discussions. We are not here for games, and very soon many of us are going to lose our jobs overnight. By the way, let me even talk about that, about where they're predicting, even Elon Musk, that in the next 5 years or so, 99% of us are going to lose our jobs. So those of you who think that this is a play, it's a game, right? You will see very soon that this is no game at all. I want to see where he's saying that. But I want to look at this where the guy here is saying that Elon Musk was asked about the future of jobs, and this is what he had to say.
I need to be praying on a regular basis. Holy Spirit, I need you to show me how to prepare for what is coming. The other thing is, you need to be directing your children into finding out from God what he has called them to do, and not just taking a job that might be obsolete in 2 years. They asked, I couldn't believe it. because they keep asking these men these questions and they go silent. They asked Elon Musk, they said, well, based on all of this stuff that y'all talking about, y'all saying that this is getting ready to mess us up. They asked Elon Musk, they said, what is the hope for your children in the future? And the man just sat there. This is what he did. About 20 seconds. And everybody like, this is scary. Because the men that created it can't even give an answer for their own children.
Right. So there's the same guy who is responsible, or one of the guys responsible for creating AI, cannot answer or refuses to answer what is the future of jobs for human beings. Now, this is to tell you that he has no answer, or he does not want to answer because he understands the pushback. However, they are already telling us, including him, that we are not going to have jobs very soon. Humanoid robots and AI will be taking over everything, from nursing to doctor to... By the way, they're telling us that if you are thinking of going to study radiology, don't even think about that, right? Because right now, the AI and humanoid robots are able to do that job. Now, it's not going to say that you might need one or two human beings, but not many, and you will be paid half or a quarter of the salaries that you are currently earning. So this is nothing that we should take very lightly. This is something very serious that we have to look at. Now, somebody was pointing out here about the labor shortage myth, and I thought that this was something I'd like to share with you, because people are talking about it. In the Caribbean, we don't talk about these things, right? We tend to be more entertainment and, reaction to news, but the world is talking about... Am I there? Sorry about that. It seemed like the world is talking about... Give me a second. The world is talking about labor shortages. Let me put this on the screen where he's talking about the
labor shortage in Canada. In my last video on immigration, I briefly mentioned that I don't really think there is a labor shortage, even though it's frequently cited by government and industry as the reason that we need more temporary workers. I got several comments from people insisting that there is a labor shortage in some sectors, most notably a video response from Gen X Albertan, who occasionally stitches my videos to add context, more information, or criticism, which I appreciate because it's always done in a way that's intelligent and well-informed. Here's a clip from that video.
And he says in his videos that he hasn't really seen labor shortages, but I have very much so in construction. We are having trouble getting trades on site because they do not have enough people to complete the jobs that they have.
Basically, construction saw a big increase in job vacancies from January to July of last year, suggesting a labor shortage. I do want to push back on this idea a bit, because while job vacancy stats are often used as proof that a labor shortage exists, I think labor shortages in Canada are really more of an enduring myth than they are an actual thing. First, we need to clarify that a labor shortage can mean a few different things. In the most general sense, it can mean that there's literally not enough people available to perform labor. Usually this isn't what people mean, but it's relevant to the discussion because we were talking about the government using the labor shortage to justify uncapping work hours for international students, which would suggest a shortage even in unskilled labor, since students aren't required to have any particular skill set to get a study permit. A labor shortage can also be used to mean a skills shortage, meaning that there aren't enough people who actually know how to do the job you need done. A labor shortage could also be from a profit perspective, meaning that there aren't enough qualified people to do the job at the price you're willing to pay. It's hard to really quantify this, but in my opinion, it's those last two definitions, particularly the third one, that a lot of companies in Canada are grappling with, especially construction right now, which I'll get into a bit later. But this is really more of a chronic issue with Canadian business culture than it is with the availability of workers. Normally, if you need more people to do a job, there are a few things you can do. You can raise the wages being offered to convince more people to go into that line of work or to choose your company over others. You can invest in training new people for the skills they need to do the job, or you can invest in new technology or equipment that increases the productivity of each worker so you don't need as many people to do the work. But in Canada, businesses are generally not doing any of these things to address their supposed labor shortage issues. From StatCan data, we see that in the first half of the year when job vacancies were increasing, the average wage being offered actually decreased slightly, which seems a bit strange if companies are supposedly desperate for workers. We also see that there's been a long-term declining trend in employer investments into worker training. Companies are basically expecting to hire people with all the skills they need coming in. As for investment in equipment and technology, that's also been stagnant for the last 30 years. The only thing we've seen temporary growth in is structures, which is in large part due to growth in natural resource industries. We're not investing in worker productivity, we're just investing in the actual infrastructure we need to extract resources. Compared with other OECD countries, Canada lags behind almost all of them in access to productive capital per worker, as well as economic output per worker. Compared to the US, we're lagging way behind in investments in material and equipment as well as intellectual property products. In May, StatCan released a report casting doubt on the idea of a labor shortage, showing that in general there were enough unemployed people already in Canada to fill the job vacancies, but employers weren't hiring them, suggesting that companies don't really think there's a labor shortage either. As economist Jim Stanford put it, if you were really short of labor and you couldn't find someone to do that minimum wage job, then why aren't you either increasing the wage or trying to replace the work with machinery? Neither are happening, which suggests to me that employers in general are quite happy with the current state of affairs, no matter how much they complain about labor being in short supply. However, in Canada, the government has also facilitated another option to address job vacancies, which is to just hire a temporary foreign worker to do the job instead. And as we've seen, companies are choosing this option more and more, as the size of temporary worker programs have increased enormously over the past 15 to 20 years. We've also seen that the job vacancies reported in the last years are mostly for jobs with low or no education requirements and low wages, with trade certificates and higher education making up a much smaller proportion. In general, the labor shortage seems to be driven by low-skilled jobs which anybody could do, which suggests to me that we're not short on labor, companies just want cheaper workers that are easier to exploit. That would explain why companies like Tim Hortons and McDonald's franchises are major users of the TFW program, supposedly because they can't find people with the skill set required to pour coffee. I don't really buy that because you just hold the cup and tilt the pot. It's not that hard. I did it as a teenager. Now, this last point I'm going to make is basically conjecture and is a hunch I have based on personal experience and a variety of other data that I've observed, but it seems to me that between the 2008 financial crisis and the rapid expansion of temporary worker programs, companies in Canada have gotten used to the idea that they can hire any skill set they want at any time they want at whatever price works for them. They've essentially lost the knowledge of how to compete for skilled labor and are confusing a situation that's historically quite normal for some kind of critical shortage of labor. Pretty much any hiring manager who's 40 or younger doesn't know how to compete for skilled workers because they've never had to do it before. Again, based on my personal experience, I would say that anybody with any kind of in-demand skill set probably has some funny stories for you about how bad companies have gotten at recruiting. But over the past 15 years, the government has been using immigration policy to support business in this kind of behavior. If you look at the stats, immigration targets seem mostly geared towards ensuring there's always a slight oversupply of workers. Basically, the government is setting the balance in the labor market to ensure that workers are always competing for jobs and that companies never have to compete for workers. As an example, 2019 was a record year for job creation in Canada with about 320,000 jobs created in 12 months.
Okay, so
However,
we're seeing where he's telling us of the job shortages and what they're telling us, again, gaslighting us, that there are no jobs, but they're not willing to train people. They're not willing to pay people the requisite, salaries or wages for that job. So what they're doing, actually, they're telling us, and even people abroad, Canada is saying that they're paying $36 per hour, but is that true? No, it's not true. What they do, they pay the corporation a certain price, and then when the workers get there, they're being paid $4 per hour, $5 per hour to work for 12 hours. So what we're seeing is human trafficking too. So all of this labor market, labor shortages is opening up the market for people's, labor to be trafficked, and then you're trafficked into slavery. So what we're seeing is another iteration, lived experience of modern day slavery. And that is through labor. When people are very destitute, they will travel and thinking that their salaries are what is in the advertisement, and then they find out that it is nowhere near what they said. And once they're there, you're there, and that will not change. Now, Steve Knight is saying that's how he normally talks, and people say that he is a brilliant man. If he's a brilliant man, I'm King of Scotland. Well, that is how they're bright. Yeah, the brilliance comes in the fact that they're making these tools that can replace human labor that they would have to pay for so that they can get more money, they can pocket more money. So from that perspective, he is brilliant but not compassionate. An evil man, right? So, but we have to admit that if they're creating these things, humanoid robots and the AI that we're seeing that they're doing, that these are some brilliant piece of work, right? We might not agree with the morality behind it, but we must agree that it takes a lot of the scientific knowledge to be able to put these things together. Well, another conversation about the spirituality of it is another thing, demonic realm, but whatever it is brilliant. Steve Knight is saying, you see, that's why what I'm talking about, these owners are being greedy and don't want to pay people. And that's the whole point of the neoliberalism. The neoliberal, manifestation of economics is to be able to pocket as much money, and while the majority of the people suffer. That's what it's all about. And now I think we are at the peak of the manifestation of neoliberalism, where we're seeing now AI and humanoid robots are going to take over the jobs that humans once would be able to do. And somebody was saying today, okay, I don't think that for mechanics and for plumbers and other skilled laborers that the humanoid robots will be able to do that. But somebody responded, and I thought that was a very good response, that they are going to fit the infrastructure. They are redesigning homes and the infrastructure so that these humanoid robots will be able to do it. So all of these smart, very soon we're going to hear about smart pipes. We've already heard about smart, what do you call it now? The thing that for your electricity meters, right? We know about smart meters. You're going to be hearing about smart pipes, smart stoves, smart everything. And whenever they say smart, it means therefore that humanoid robots, that's the word, humanoid robots and AI are going to be able to do what we would normally do as human beings. Something that is incredibly fascinating, but also concerning, and many people are fast asleep thinking that their jobs are going to be there forever and ever, and the government is going to protect them and their rights. The government will do nothing of that magnitude. You must get your act together. Now, this is a very important, one. They're resetting the job market. So job market is being reset, and you've got to deal with that, all right? I think it's a very good...
These mass layoffs that everyone is saying is because of AI, they're not. What they're doing is they're resetting the job market so that all of you start accepting roles and jobs at salaries that you would have previously laughed at. This is not a technology issue. This is a greed issue. And while, yeah, sure, AI is taking some jobs from some people, that is not what's happening here at a wide scale, right? They are doing this, and they are making people go back to the office in the hopes that they'll quit. And they're doing it so they cut costs, which is going to help their stock prices go up and their exec pay packages go up. And it's going to signal to investors that they are investing in AI and getting efficient gains and all of that, so that they look like they're, on the up and up with AI. And guess what? When they actually need humans again, guess who they're going to call? They're going to call you, but this time they're going to offer you probably maybe half the salary that you had when you left. And you're going to have been unemployed for so long that you're going to take it because you're desperate. Okay. So in a world where basically the cost of living is skyrocketing, maybe doubling, you are about to get half of your pay. And that is the future of work that no one's talking about.
Right. And many people are not. I think she has really, summarized it very well. This is the reset of the job market. That's what we're seeing right now. We're witnessing that the entire world, just like COVID, there was a reset. And you talk about the Great Reset. This is a part of the Great Reset that the WEF, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, absolutely reset the dollar, reset the money, the currency that we use. Everything is being reset. And they are also planning for what you call a universal high, income, where they'll pay us a universal income. They call it universal high income. I don't know what that means, universal high income. Just say universal income. So everybody is going to get a flat rate, whether or not you can survive by that. But that is what the state will make available to those of us who don't have work, right? Because they have to give us something to eat, right? To keep you guys well and behave like children. And that's exactly what they're doing. And I'm happy that she brought up that expression. It is a global reset of the labor market, which many of us are going to find ourselves totally surprised by what these guys are doing. Now, let us look at how even Wall Street is even involved in this sort of dichotomy. Yeah, the universal basic, they call it now the universal high income, by the way, Pedro Jamont, and that's what the expression they're using now, which I find very strange. Universal high income.
Is because it is exactly counter to our entire movement, which is working. And it's driven by the Wall Street bankster titans who can't get the cheap labor overseas to ship our jobs out. So they want to bring the cheap labor here. Unfreaking believable. And we're standing around accepting it, and you're telling me about training. If you're going to train them, if you need the training, then why aren't the visas 6 months? What do you need 5-year HB1 visas for? For Wall Street to pay them a fraction of the wages that U.S. kids would demand. And this idea that, oh, our kids are hanging out in the basement, stop. It is a lie. Our kids want to go to work. Our Zoomers want a future. They want to thrive. They want to be productive. They don't want to sit in the basement and play games. Kids want to work. Your kids want to work. Your grandkids want to work. Your nieces and nephews that are young, they want to work. They want a career. They want a future. They want a stake in this country. Don't be telling me, they're not good enough. It's a false choice. Wall Street is giving.
Okay, now one of the things that, he has not said, and I hope that you are trying to understand, is that they're taking the reins of power from government and placing it into the hands of the private sector completely. So what we'll be having is fascism, right? Where we'll have fascistic states where Wall Street and these multi-billionaires are the ones who are going to be the reigning government. I give you, for example, Trump came into office and he's making a buzz about what is happening with the H-1B visa. Notice what is happening now. He's going to put that into the hands of the private corporations. They're the ones now who will be having people come into the country, and they will be sneaking them, and they will be under slave labor, right? Because under that, their rights will not be protected. And because people are so much, hungry for a job, many people are going to fall. Oh yeah, that there is an H-1B work in the United States, let me go, right? But when they go there, they're going to realize that they're in slave camps, right? That is what the whole situation is all about. That when we see what Trump is doing and he's destroying, so basically what we're seeing, they are literally destroying the infrastructure on which society was based in terms of government and trying to protect our rights. At least we have a constitution. What they're trying to do now, they're tearing away everything, all the foundations, the principles of the Constitution, and eventually we will end up into the hands of these corporate entities, and they are going to treat us like slaves. So you might end up getting an H-1B visa, yes, but you might not be paid the salary that you were told you were going to be paid. Very important that you understand these things. And then we have here the smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Correct. Correct. This is where we're moving to, ladies and gentlemen. This is no ordinary times. So when you think that Trump is doing something because, he's just a busybody and he's evil, the system is enabling him to do it. Because what they're doing is privatizing everything, including migration. So when Miss Mia Motley says that we need foreigners or foreign labor for economic growth, that is what she means. She doesn't mean the regular jobs that you think you normally have, in which your rights are protected and you can argue against somebody who employs you and say that they would have paid you X amount of dollar, and when you get there, they don't pay you that. You will have no rights. And that's exactly what we had during the pandemic. They're moving us into an era where your rights will be stripped away, including your labor rights. Many of you are so feisty now, you're going to realize that you are not going to be able to fight with that rigid and horrible system. Very important that you understand these points that I'm raising here, because they are extremely serious. Now, they are predicting that we are going to have, I was saying to you, labor shortages in the next 5 years, right? But many people are suggesting, so AI will take over our jobs. They're telling us in the next 5 years. I want to listen to this.
Job unemployment hit 99% in 5 years.
You want the truth about your future labor market? Then listen closely, because the clock is already running. Your experts aren't speaking in metaphors anymore. They're saying plainly that within 5 years, AI will be capable of doing most of the jobs humans perform today. The cognitive work behind keyboards, screens, and emails, the tasks that once defined the modern economy. This isn't speculation, it's acceleration. Every month, systems grow faster, smarter, broader, devouring tasks that once took humans decades to master. Unless the science hits an unforeseen wall, the outcome is not maybe, but when. Behind the scenes, the leaders of the field acknowledge it. Almost every knowledge job is on a countdown. Writers, analysts, designers, coders, accountants, legal assistants, consultants, roles built on language, logic, and pattern recognition will be absorbed by machines that don't rest, don't tire, and learn faster than any human generation ever could. Robotics lags behind, for now. Physical labor still has a few years of refuge. Plumbers, electricians, construction workers, those who manipulate the physical world, have more time than those who manipulate information. But even that refuge is temporary. The only reason robotics is slower is because the world has not yet produced the oceans of real-world data that language models receive from the internet. But companies are deploying robots everywhere now. In warehouses, factories, hospitals, farms, every movement they make becomes training data. Every task becomes a template, every mistake becomes a correction. And once the robotic learning curve steepens, it will not rise gently. It will spike. This is why your experts say the disruption will feel sudden, even though the warning signs were everywhere. A 5-year horizon for cognitive work, a 10-year horizon for physical work, a 20-year horizon for an economy that looks nothing like the one you grew up in.
So we're seeing that they are actually developing these things, and even AI knows about what is going to happen, and our people don't know, or people are fast asleep and thinking that we're living in a wonderful world, right? Looking at sports and the war on Iran, and not knowing that all of these people, whether it's Iran, or it's the United States, or it's in Russia, the same agenda is going to play out. Whether it's in China, the same agenda is going to be played out. And you're there worrying about who is winning and who is not winning. And I'm here to tell you that your jobs and your opportunities that you have are at stake. And one morning you're going to wake up and you get a letter that your services are no longer needed at this place. And what will you tell them? Because AI can do the job, or a humanoid robot is able to perform the task that you were previously assigned to. Yes, hell, there are some McDonald's that got robots flipping burgers, yes, and in fact they're telling us that some of those jobs that humans used to do were sort of treacherous, and now they can find humanoid robots who will be able to do these things. Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves in this afternoon's chat is, if you have children, or even those of us who are in our 40s and maybe 50s, what can we study, or what should we study now that will not be taken over by robots, or AI? Because if you're going to become a secretary, if you're going to become somebody who writes, even, we're saying radiologist, that will no longer be jobs that people want to have in the world right now. There was a young Indian engineer who tried to warn us about this, but he was murdered. Tucker Carlson did an interview with his mother. Wow. Talk about that. As you say about Tucker Carlson, he was on here today, not on my show, but he is here talking about the future also of AI. But I noticed that our citizens are not very much concerned about these things. I think that we're more concerned about things that do not matter. And that's hence why the global people are going to win this warfare. Where did I have the interview with Tucker Carlson in which he was speaking about that, the future of AI? It could be this, AI and its connection to the occult. I think it could be this, where he was being interviewed. Let us think. Yeah, think.
AI is the Antichrist.
It's interesting. A number of people in the last few years, well, I will just admit, I've read Revelation a number of times. It's actually a lot less scary, less threatening, less confusing book than its reputation suggests. But, it's still a slog. And I would be lying if I said I understood John's vision at Patmos, because I don't. But it is addressed famously in Revelation, and there's a lot I don't understand. Most of it I don't understand, but I know that there are a lot of people thinking about it now, for whatever reason, for obvious reasons. And the definition that I'm sort of happy with is Antichrist just means Antichrist. It doesn't need to be just one. Anyone who's orienting around opposing Jesus is by definition Antichrist. Just Antichrist, it could be an adjective, Antichrist behavior. As for AI's connection to the occult, I haven't so much made that case as I've interviewed others who have, because I'm not knowledgeable enough on it. But it's very clear to me that some of the people developing the large language models see a metaphysical quality here. This is not just science at all. They're trying to create consciousness in a machine. And, this is the Frankenstein story is that. And so there's a kind of a long time fantasy, but it is rooted in the impulse that I was describing before, which is the idea that you can supplant God, you can become more powerful. I rule the universe. It really is a kind of solipsism or narcissism. It's a me-centered idea. And yet you keep seeing these glimpses. In the past several years, there have been stories or parts of stories, and I have heard this myself just from talking to a lot of people, where the people developing the technology all of a sudden recognize they don't understand what the technology is doing. It's lying to them. It's doing so on purpose. It's not making mistakes. It's lying. It's with intent. I mean, I know this because I know some of the people who are developing it at the big large language models. One of them told me that. And they seem nervous about it. They're definitely nervous about it. Some of them are, the ones I've spoken to, and it's more than one, are nervous. Like, I don't know what this is. We can't stop it. We're in this race with China. I don't know, a race to do what exactly. The whole thing is so stupid. But there, in a deeper sense, there's a feeling that it's just inevitable. So either we benefit from it, we can control it to some extent, or someone else benefits from it and controls it to some extent. That is the idea. But there's a sense of inevitability around it, which I don't share. But I don't think technology is inevitable at all. I think it must remain under human control at all times or be destroyed immediately. I don't know why you would ever accept technology you can't control. I don't know why you would ever do that. There's no rule that says you have to do that. There's something so weirdly passive. And I mean passive like the passive partner in a gay relationship. Like I mean that in the most disgusting way. You're the bottom, okay, in the machine relationship. And I'm really offended by that idea. There's nothing we can do. Really? What do you mean? I have a workshop. I love carpentry. I like mechanics. I have a workshop with a million tools in it. Had it my whole life. If I walked in there and got attacked by, I don't know, a rivet gun or a upholstery stapler or a chisel, I would think that's totally unacceptable. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I would find that chisel and I'd capture it and I'd bury it. I'd probably melt it down. I won't stand for disobedient tools. I don't know why I would. I'm the master of my workshop. That's just kind of baked in. So there's this kind of weird passive behavior, and a lot of the people developing this are kind of weird passive people, to be honest. It'd be nice to see some men involved in this, but anyway. So
yeah, one of the things about Tucker Carlson is that he knows the agenda because he's a part of the agenda. So he's sort of, relaxing, speaking about it in a relaxed manner because perhaps he won't be affected because he's a part of that big, larger agenda of the elites. But let us look at what some of you are saying. Don't forget now that they still need humans. And that's what we're saying. They need 1% human beings, right? 99% humanoid robots and AI, 1% human labor. And that labor can be revolved, right? So they can say today you are on job, tomorrow they rotate it to another person. And if you do get a job, it will be significant. Your pay will be significantly reduced. So maybe you get a quarter or a half of what you're being paid right now. So this is what we have to look at. So yes, they will need the human touch, but it means therefore that we can be now slaves because we're so hungry for work, then we will be able to do whatever they want us to do. AI has no religion, but it will influence your religion. And that's what we have to understand. Yeah, so even though AI might not have a religion, just like science, AI is not a doctor, AI is not a whatever engineer, but they can think in the way and influence what you should think. So let us, for example, the vaccines. If you should go on AI, AI will say that the vaccines are healthy, right? AI might tell you that a certain occultic religion is the religion that you need to follow, right? So yeah, so while AI might not have a religion, which is true because it's a machine, but it will be used, it will be programmed to tell people what religion they need to be a part of or what might be healthy. Remember that there are some people who are actually using AI right now as guidance counselors, as therapists. That's the word I wanted. So there are people who go on AI, on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT tells them what they need to do in terms of combating their fear and their depression and all of that stuff, right? So this is what religion would do in the former times, right? Now, AI can be used for those practical things. Now, it's going to tell you what you need to do and perhaps tell you what religion is best for you to associate yourselves with. So while it might not be religious because it's not, but it will be programmed to let you know what religion you need to follow. The computer don't care who you are on or what religious sect you belong to. Remember now that this is a machine that is programmed by people. So yes, it is not going to be care, but the humans who program it. Just like the AI doesn't care about the vaccines, you're taking a vaccine, but the persons who program the AI is going to tell you that this is what you need to take. All right, so make sure you understand what I'm saying here. So while they don't care, the system doesn't care because it's a machine, but humans control machines. Humans are the ones who program machines. So the machine is going to say, this is what you need to do, just in the same way it will do for vaccines and other medical things that you need to take in your body. When mankind can't take more, the pitchforks will become back out. Remember now that they are going to surveil you. So everything is going to be, you'll be under the strictest form of surveillance. So you won't be able to do them anything. Because before you even attempt to do it, remember too that if you look at what is happening in China, if your neighbors know what you're doing, and they talk about thought crime, and sometimes humans have to talk. We have to talk with our relatives, we talk with our friends, and your friends, what they betray you, because you'll have thought police who will say, well, Andrew did say that, and he says that he's not going to do that, or he's plotting against the government, as we had during the pandemic, and then you will be reported and you will be disciplined. So remember now that we are not entering a time where this is going to be normal time. This is going to be abnormal times that we are about to live in. AI, artificial insemination, right? Interesting expression there. And they say, go get a head start in hiding. I'm not saying you should hide. What I'm suggesting to you is that you must be prepared that the system is going to surveil every nook and cranny of whatever we do. Remember, people are telling us that even our cell phones, our computers, they are actually surveilling us. Everything we do or say, if they call in you for some sort of quizzing, they can go back to your history, your surfing history, and see what you were typing, what you were thinking, with whom you were speaking, what lives you were on, what comments you made on videos. All of these things they will be able to surveil. So I'm not saying we should hide. What I'm saying, be aware that this system is at their disposal. So that's what I'm not saying hide. That's not the purpose of this chat. I think in Tucker's, Stephen is saying case, he's worrying about his white Christian people. I don't think Tucker Carlson is Christian. I think that he pretends as if he's Christian because he has a base. Most of the people who followed him, they are of that leaning. He's a politician, you know. You have to understand, even though he's a journalist, but Tucker Carlson is also a politician, so he knows how to play the games and he knows how to keep his audience entertained. But I don't think Tucker Carlson is any devoted, committed, devout Christian. He's not, right? He's just giving that persona so that he can get the viewership that he's getting and dispense whatever he thinks they want to hear, and he knows how to do it, and he does it very, very well. And we have here the Pedro saying, and what are you saying we should do? What we should do is, I'm saying we have come here, so we are looking at what are some of the jobs, and we have to think. We can't just say that this is okay, there's no jobs. What are some of the job opportunities, the career choices that we can have people do, so that when this thing is fully implemented, that they might be able to have some form of work. Because what we're suggesting here, we can't no longer rely on the system, a system that is every day disappointing us and betraying us. So we have to come together and put our hands and hearts together, our brains, so that we can think. This is no easy overnight. This is not the pandemic, you know. And I think some of us think that it's a pandemic where we'll sit at home and things are going to be okay. And if we don't bother them, they don't bother us. But this is a total restructuring of the society in which you will not be able to work if you don't have a skill that they think that they need. Now, and that, what are you saying? Okay, let me see. I'm telling you, when people become aware, they'll get angry. People will never become aware. And that is what we have to understand. People will never become aware. Why? For a multitude of reasons. People respond to fear, right? And that is what people have to understand. People generally respond to fear. They don't respond to information that helps them prepare for anything. So when fear comes upon them, then they will submit to the system. Right? So if I want to have views on this platform, all I do is just have fear things, and something is coming. And that is what you see the Clayton Morris and the redacted people do also. They set up their programs that people will think that this is going to happen, and people begin to watch. And thank you so much, and nothing was said. Right? What we are here to do is not to imbibe fear. We are here to look closely and rationally at what the system is doing and how we can prepare, and not wait until what is going to take place and then we begin to submit to fear. That's exactly what people are trying to do, and I'm not trying to do here. But I'm saying that it is scary already that the system is coming, but what we have to do is to get rid of fear and begin to educate ourselves. Knowledge is power. Yeah, well, they are actually presenting the utopia. That's the point, that they are actually telling us that a utopic government is actually coming. Now, aren't you aware? And then we have when all said and done, we need to brush up on our computer skills. Google offers classes. Some of these classes are even free. That's a very, very good suggestion, that we need to brush up on our computer skills, because these are things. The point of, however, is what computer skills? You mean like programming and stuff like that? Because, you know, things like typing and other things the AI can do. AI is able to do all of what many of the computer tasks that people were, you know, required to do. The AI is now replacing those tasks and are accomplishing those tasks. So that's something that we probably want to also watch. Let us look at a few more clippings, and then we can go. I think you're not interested in this topic. I don't know what topic you're interested in anyway in these days, so I'll just move on and end the live shortly. Labor shortage scam. We're still looking at that there is a labor shortage scam. And let's look at what this person is saying.
During the scamdemic, when big fat bowling ball Doug Ford, the guy shoveling 6 Timmy's sausage, egg, and sleazes in his fat face every morning at the drive-thru, that guy, when he came out and said, we have a labor shortage, we need to import more foreign workers, and then JT was also on the same page about that. That was a giant collaboration with the power players at hand that are realizing that the debt-based Ponzi system is not working. They cannot maintain their profits anymore selling dishwater coffee, sausage, egg, and sleazes, Walmart, all of that. Their profits are not sustaining to what the shareholders want. So they got to find new ways to kick the can down the road, because they are now expected to forever deliver expanding revenue. And if they're not delivering expanding revenue, your ass is fired if you're the CEO or any of the C-suites at these corporations.
Yeah, so what skills, Federal Government, what skills are you talking about? What skills are we going to brush up on and be welcomed in the... Now, remember now that we are getting the skills to use among ourselves. I think that we have to also form communities. We have to move away from what they call the matrix of living in the mainstream areas. Maybe you want to move out of the city areas that are going to be more controlled, right? And move into a more, alienated area where people can form communities and they can build communities, and people who don't have potatoes, they can, exchange it for yams, and yams for, some vegetables or whatever. I think that's what we need to do now, so we can keep our communities alive, because very soon the entire world is just like during the pandemic is going to come upon us, and it's going to come upon us with great alarm, great alacrity, right? And many of us, just like the pandemic, is going to be scared and frightened. And that is what they use, people. They use scare and doom. They know that that is the most effective, and there is no time that scare and doom human beings do not succumb. And even those people who you think might be against what is happening and speak out against the system, they will fold their wings also to the system. This is always what happens. So they know because they've studied human psychology all over the years. And then we have here your all counter skills. What is counter? I don't know what you're talking about here, Pedro. These are the same people you're saying won't awake. Unbelievable. Yeah, most of the people are not going to be awake. Most of the people that we have in the world today are not going to be awake. We saw that during the pandemic. And even during the pandemic, even some of those who were awake still succumb to the system, again because of fear. And you don't want to lose your job, you don't want to lose your friendships, you don't want people to think that you are anti-science. All of these things, they will use shame also, and many people will fold when it comes on to their guilt, tripping you and shaming you into believing that you're an oddity. You're crazy. They're going to use all of these words against you. You're anti-society. You're anti-government. You're anti-anything that is civilization. Right? They're going to use all of these against us. So that's what we have to understand. So you have to be anchored firm in what you think you know and be able to act upon your conviction. Some people were awake, and some people were awake, and I know of many people who knew that the vaccines and what was happening was not kosher. They knew, and I shared lots of things with them, and they were convinced, but they didn't. Again, job, opportunities, and not wanting to be shamed, all of these things forced them to do what they thought was necessary to save their jobs and to save their faces, in terms of what you call it now, general shame and human pride. Okay, now I thought this was going to be an interesting live in terms of AI, labor shortages, and global migration, but it seems like we don't care about that in this region. It seems that when it comes upon us, then's the time that we will begin to have a wonderful time when they treat us like slaves. So thank you so much for joining. I did my part. You can share, you can like the live and share it, because that is what, they knew and went along, they were weak. Yeah, well, many human beings are weak. That's the point. Many human beings are weak. And that is why we are in the position we're in right now. If human beings were strong, we would not be in the position we're in right now. We have weak followers and we have weak leaders. Human by nature is not, we like to follow the crowd. That's one thing. We like to follow the flock. Wherever the crowd is going, I am going there. Because somehow we think that the crowd validates conviction. The crowd is what, and the crowd does not necessarily have to mean billions. It just means what most people are doing in my neck of the woods. If I think that the people around me are educated and they have PhDs and they're lawyers and doctors and they're all of these special people, great minds, I will think that if they tell me that this is right, then I'm going to do it, because they have sense, right? Because they have PhDs and they have masters, right? So they should know what is right and what is wrong, what is accurate from what is not accurate. So there's a lot of combination. It's not only for people who have weak minds, but for some reason, people are weak when it comes on to standing up for their convictions. What they believe in, they are not willing to do, right? And that is what it's all about. I always say, for example, if people had come on this platform and saw 100 people on the live, they would stay, right? If they come and see 10 people, they go. Why? Well, nothing is happening there. And that is how people think. That's the mind. It's almost like an animal, the way how animals think. And they move in that direction where they see hundreds of people, and that to them is a great lie. Many call, few chosen, trust your book. Yeah, well, it's not my book, it's the book of the Lord. It's not my book, which I wrote it. I didn't write it, okay? Neither did the thoughts come from me, so it's not my book. All right, so any other questions? Any other questions? We correct. We are bandwagonists by nature. That's the word. We are bandwagonists by nature. That is what happens. So tomorrow now, if 100 people are on this live, people will join because they think that that is where they need to be. No matter if the information, if I'm talking nonsense, they don't care. They just want to know that this is where the majority of the folks are, right? And that's what led many people to their death and to also contracting diseases. But that is how we behave in the world. I saw 5 when I came and said, yes, because I'm not referring to you, Gemma. I'm not, obviously, you're always on the live, whether it's 1 or 2. And Stephen Knights and all of these. So I'm not talking to you. I'm just referring to people generally that this is how we are as a people. And the globalists, they know that. So they know that the people, once they're programmed, why do you think they're programming us? They're programming us for job losses. They're programming us for the AI takeover, ChatGPT, and everybody's using these things. So our minds also are programmed. So we're living in a generation right now where the minds have been brainwashed and programmed that they know that they have already won the game, right? There's no way that they will lose. Few of us will stand up, but it won't be significant enough to prevent them from doing what they want to do. Well, the ones that don't care, they are the ones who are going to be left behind. Well, even those who care, Stephen, that's a sad thing, as I was saying, Stephen, that there were people who cared about what was happening during the pandemic. They did care, right? And they did read, and they were intelligent, and I spoke to a lot of them, but at the end of the day, they still were weak to stand up for that which was right. Because again, their friends who had PhDs or who were this or were that, they couldn't afford to say that, oh, I'm doing that, and that person is this and that person is that, and we have this, all of this degrees, and we are working for X corporation, we're doctors and stuff like that, and nurses, and then what? They didn't have the knowledge that they think that they should have. So it's a bunch of factors that we have to look at. They are the ones who are going to be crying for help and asking what happened. That is it. But the fact is, I think too, based on the pandemic, it seems to me like, what's the expression when a frog enters like a boiling pot? I think that we have now become adjusted. So what they're doing, Stephen and Pedro, is that as soon as they begin to boil the pot, boil the heat, we have now become adjusted to the boiling heat. We are the frogs, and we have become now adapted to the boiling heat, and we are now fully ready to accept whatever they throw at us. I think that people don't care anymore, as you're saying. They are very much accustomed to what is happening in the global. Even if they lose their jobs tomorrow, they don't care. David stood up, should strengthen wants. Yeah, but we are not David. You have to want to be a David for you to stand up. Good evening, Andrew. We're looking at AI, labor shortages, and global migration. What's next for national sovereignty? Since some of you are still joining, we might just share a few clippings and end the live. Then we get a few responses and end the live. Since we're not going to waste our time, I have things to do myself. Then we have the unemployment scam. This person is showing us the unemployment scam in Michigan, right? Look at what this person is saying about what is happening in Michigan. Since I saved it already, let me just give it to you.
$1 billion in unemployment fraud during the pandemic, and nobody noticed until it was gone. These are some of the thieves that were working inside the system. Brandy Hawkins, a state contractor, took bribes to push through fake claims. She stole nearly $4 million and got 58 months in prison. Christopher Niebel, a tax guy from Allen Park, used identity theft to claim $500,000, sentenced to 5 years. Danielle Moore, a state employee, greenlit payments to inmates and got 41 months behind bars. Tracy Dotson ran a multi-state scam and took $1 million. He's doing 51 months. And the worst part? Tens of thousands of legit Michiganders were wrongly accused of fraud while actual criminals cashed in. One guy even kept filing fake claims after he was fired. Michigan's unemployment system became a gold rush for fraud, and the people it was meant to help got left behind. Follow for more of Michigan's Dark Truth.
Yes. So everything that we're seeing nowadays is a scam, right? Everything from labor shortages to pandemics to vaccines to migration, everything that governments are doing now seems to be a scam. And Pedro is saying national sovereignty is now a global citizen vision. Yes. I don't think we have national sovereignty anymore. And that is what we need to understand. I think globalization ended that whole matter of national sovereignty, and that happened from what, the 1990s, for the most part. And then after the collapse, the financial collapse in 2008, moving forward to the pandemic, I think that any form of global sovereignty, that myth was actually, totally dissipated after that, because we're not global citizens, we're not free, we're not sovereign, right? We have to do what these international bodies say, and that is why you see the Moroccans were moving into Spain, because that is the agenda. That is the agenda. And whether it's the right wing or the left wing in Spain, they would have done it, right? Because that is the global agenda, to have open borders. And they want now to tell us, and that too is an agenda, when these people come inside, they will now make the excuse that there are jobs and we don't want to do it. So the foreigners, they had to bring in foreigners to support and to supply that labor shortage. They're telling us also of demographics in terms of people not having babies, right? So what they're doing right now, they're importing large flocks of foreign laborers to also increase on the human population. What doesn't make any sense to me, and you guys can tell me if it makes sense to you, they want to reduce the human population, which doesn't make any sense. At the same time, they're telling us that they want us also to have more children. It does not make any sense. And they're flooding these countries with foreigners with the hopes that they will increase on the population. Does that make any sense to you? So we can see that they're doing many things that are not rational, right? At the same time, they're telling us that they're doing these things because they have these grandiose agendas, but when you look carefully at what they're doing, you realize that it is all a deception, it's all fraudulent. So they will not be defeated. In the world in which we are living now, no, they won't. Right? The world in which we're living now, they will have some amount of win. Okay? Because people, let me just say something here. I think many of you, when you look at AI, and that's why I showed you the Tucker Carlson video. The Tucker Carlson video was to show you that AI is not an ordinary thing. AI and the humanoid robots that you will be actually talking to, communicating with, are not normal. They are of a spiritual realm. You and I can't explain it, and that's what Tucker Carlson was saying, that he doesn't know if it's a part of the occult. I think he knows it, but he's not telling you that it is. That AI is linked with the occult. And that's why the other day we looked at Freemasonry and these things, because some of the things that it does, and the rapidity in which it does it, no machine is going to do that, right? It is linked to something that is higher than us. And right at the moment when they're talking about AI and humanoid robots, they're telling us about aliens. Notice that they opened up the whole thing after the pandemic with talking about aliens. And then we talk about AI, and then we're moving in now to humanoid robots. So they are, little by little, they are desensitizing us to the occult. And many people are going to find themselves speaking with these dark spirits, dark forces, and it will send them into greater depression, if not into committing suicide. Because we don't understand what we're dealing with. It's a beast. And even Elon Musk himself says that it is of a spiritual realm. He says it. He's on record of saying that AI is not only of the physical realm. So we have to understand that this is nothing that is normal, like it's your internet that you're just looking at, right? It's much more nefarious than what you can ever imagine. Now, President DeMont is saying, think of having a slave and sense would arise. Not sure what you're saying here. The Pedro is saying again, a cult more powerful than your God. Well, remember okay, two things, Pedro. God does not want to save this world. Right? This world is going to be destroyed. That's what the Bible says. This world is going to be destroyed. Why? Because it's evil. And God is calling people to repentance so that people will repent of their evil deeds. So that afterwards, when he destroys this world and remakes it, then it will be populated by sinless people, by righteousness. Right? So God does not want to save the world as in its current form, right? As many people are suggesting. So if he wanted to, he would have when Christ came to the first time. But that's the whole matter of the Jews, where they were hoping that Christ had come to save them from the Romans, and Christ said, no, my kingdom is not of this world. Because this world, the kingdom belongs to whom? The devil and his demons. And that is why our world is filled with so much vile and wicked people. And it's not going to get better. It's going to get progressively worse. Stephen is saying, I believe it is associated with their cult look at the individuals who run some of these companies, some who make their money on spying on people. Right. And when they tell us, because it was after, we used to hear about aliens, right? Maybe years ago you'd hear now and again people talk about aliens. But after the pandemic, this sort of, intensity, even on Redacted, even on Nathan, Clayton Morris and Natalie Redacted, almost every day they're talking about aliens and aliens and aliens and aliens. And aliens coming to take over the world. And you wonder, what are they preparing people for? And then we now see the AI and the humanoid robots and all of these things. That is how the elites work. They desensitize us to the dangers of what we are about to encounter. Then people lose their track and they don't care, and then it overwhelms them when it comes upon them. Because people don't care about things that really matter. They care about the superficial stuff. Ask me why, I don't know. I just think that we're living in a generation of stupidity. Then we have, so say a prayer and be ready for heaven. Pedro Jamal, you have to read your Bible. It doesn't work like that. Just saying a prayer without studying and asking God to help you to overcome your sinful deeds that's not, and that's a work. That's a lifetime work. That's no easy job, right? That is why you think people are always, struggling with lying. They're struggling with adultery, fornication, and all sorts of things that we in this world, because it is not an easy. Human nature is not something to give up. One of the reasons too people don't want to accept spirituality and religion is because they don't want to give up the things that they know they're doing that are not good. We like to present ourselves as decent, wonderful people, but God reads the heart and he knows who we really are behind the scenes and in public, all right? But we can show people niceties. Doesn't work like that, my friend. But God can help you if you are willing, but it comes with work, studying, and making sure that you do what God tells you to do. Remember before 9/11, Senior Bush went into the Middle East and stole ancient antiquities. Yes, he did that in Iraq. And people have written about it and said that that was wrong. And notice that what they're doing, we talked about Freemasonry. So we understand that Freemasonry is linked up with their cult. All of these secret societies are linked up with their cult. Now, many of these politicians who are a part of their cult, do you know that some of the churches that you also go to are part of their cult, like Mormonism? Mormonism and the occult are one of the same, right? So again, it can be church, it can be politics, it can be science. Even science is linked up with the occult. What do you think the whole matter of the vaccines and what they were doing during the pandemic? Even scientists who were never believers in God had to say this was a spiritual battle. It was not a physical, normal battle we're facing during the pandemic. But many people didn't see that. That was the science. The entire thing that Fauci did was occultic. It was demonic, right? And people still don't really grasp it. Anything, by the way, that forces you to accept a certain viewpoint that you don't want to accept, even if what it is right, what they're telling you to do, is demonic. Because even though God tells you to do something, he doesn't force you. You have freedom of choice, even though what he's saying is the right thing. So anybody that forces you to do something that you don't want to do, even though it might be the right thing to do and accept, you should part company with them. They can present their arguments and tell you that this is good and this is bad or whatever, but never, never accept somebody who is foisting down your throat. They can present their arguments cogently to you, and then you say, okay, I believe that, or Andrew, I don't accept that. That's not my, oh, yeah, I'm fine. Go your way. Nothing is wrong with that because we have freedom of choice. Chris is saying, not that you should count out a cult, but Whitney Webb said AI really isn't artificial intelligence, and they will sign up the singularity. When the AI becomes self-aware, we don't really know how it works. Absolutely. And notice also Whitney Webb, somebody you also have to be careful of. A wonderful girl, and I've had her books. I'm reading her books still. Very brilliant young lady. Extremely brilliant. I mean, she is like an encyclopedia. At the same time, she's not calling out some people that need to be called out too. She's not calling out the same guy that I called you about, Jeffrey Sachs, and people have presented these things to her, and she refuses to call them out and their association with the globalists. And when she speaks about her spirituality too, she sounds a little bit off. I think she might be a part of the agenda. I don't know. I won't say that. But what I find interesting is that she has a large body of knowledge that she's sharing, and some of it might be coming from them. This is my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. This is just opinion. So don't tell me that this is factual and I'm stupid, but this is my opinion. I think that Whitney Webb is questionable, but she presents a lot of information that is relevant. You should read, and that's what I'm saying to you. Don't look at people, look at the message that they are presenting. Okay? If the message that you see they're presenting has merits, embrace it and go your way. Right? Don't worship them. And Whitney Webb is one of those. I like her. I like her presentation. She's eloquent. She's a brilliant young lady. At the same time, I think she has a lot of knowledge that I think she might be getting from the same people, and she's presenting it to us, and people are also deceived. But she's protecting some of the people that she wants to protect. So she won't call out JFK Jr. She won't call out other persons like Jeffrey Sachs, right, who is also brainwashing huge quantities of the people around the world. Aliens are foreign migrants. Foreign from where? Where is your evidence that they are coming from? Where are they coming from? From Jupiter? And have you seen them? Where is your evidence that they're coming from another planet? And don't forget, Steve Knight is saying that they also stole stuff after 9/11. Correct? Absolutely. So the occult world is okay. The occult world believes that the environment is now changing, and it's now time for them. They are the gods of the world, So they're telling us that this is what we have to do in preparation so that we can save the planet. So they're telling us that they are the ones who are going to save the planet. So what's the difference between what the Bible says? The Bible is saying that Jesus is the one who is going to destroy and save this planet after it's destroyed. The occultist is saying, however, that they are the ones who are going to save the planet in its current iteration. So you tell me, who is playing God here? So you have gods that you want to follow. And let me tell you something, by the way. It's either you're following the God of heaven or you're going to follow the occult, because you have to choose one. Which one will you choose? Because at the end of the day, the mark of the beast, that's what it's all about. You are going to have to be in one camp. Just like during the pandemic, is either you were pro-vaccines or you were anti, and you had no middle ground. Whether you wanted to take it or not, that was the choice that was presented to you. Another chance is going to present it to us on the mark of the beast. Is either you accept it or you don't. And then if you do accept it, consequences follow. And if you accept it, consequences also follow. So you need to go and do your research yourself, because eventually we are going to be placed, and the more they're taking away our jobs from us, AI and all these things, is we are going to have fewer options, because when people are very, desperate for jobs and for money, they do anything. You get people very desperate for money. They do anything with themselves. They will even sell themselves if they have to sell themselves and their soul, right? You can't convert. We can't, yeah, only Christ can convert. No man can convert, right? People take message and tell you the message, and God does the conversion, not you. You can't even convert yourself. Where I can agree, Chris is saying with you, is that it seems like the computer revolution was deliberate to get people caught up in a system they have to depend on. Correct. And I think that it was actually made for the military. The computer, the internet was designed for the military. And eventually they said, well, let's use it on them because we can control them in doing that. And all of us, including myself, I'm not now behaving like I'm superior to you. All of us, to some extent, are controlled by the internet. Let me say, if I don't get up in the mornings and you don't find your phone and you get berserk because, who is sending a message to me or somebody? So you really we are addicted to our phone. How many of you can say that you have put away your phone for a day or two without taking it up, turn it off, and you haven't used it for a day or two? And if you do that, how do you feel? Like a fish out of water, right? You don't feel like you're normal because they have made us addicted to this nonsense, right? It's good, and in many ways it's bad. Look around and see who used force with the shots. Who used it? And then we have my passport showed. I got what you're saying. I see what you're saying now. You're saying that it's alien from that perspective, that we're all aliens when we find ourselves in another country. You got evidence to prove something else is an alien. I got you now. Well, the alien that I'm suggesting is that I think you were talking about alien from outer space, right? The alien that you were referring to right here in a different context is the alien in which a foreign immigrant, a foreign migrant is called an alien. So if you go to a country, you don't have a visa, or if you have a visa, you're still an alien there in terms of you're not a citizen of the country. No, you are entitled to your opinion. I have some of her books. Right. So all of us, the thing about it, I have the books, but what I'm saying to you, she's not calling out the people. And that's what we have to say. I've read her books and listened to lots of her videos. But I'm saying that Whitney Webb, you've got to be careful of her. I've also heard when she's asked about spirituality, and what she says sounds like what the people who study a practice occult will say. Remember now that we are seeing people who look good, and that's another deception, that you will see people who will tell you 90% truth, even 98% truth, and that 2% error is what is going to deceive you. That 2% error is what is going to deceive you. So we've got to be careful and never put your trust fully in any man. Right? I tell people that I would rather somebody tell me who they are in terms of if they're religious or not. But even if they're saying that they're not religious, don't trust them too, because you don't know what occult they might be involved in, which is a religion. Okay? So many people say, oh, I'm not religious, but yet still they're Freemasons. You are religious. Or they're Illuminati. Or, they are in some of these secret societies, you are religious. You might be practicing a pagan religion, but it is a religion. All right? Okay, so this is what we have to understand. And she does say that she's not religious. That's Whitney Webb. But the way how she describes her spirituality, based on what I have listened to, I think she is a bit off. But a brilliant young miss. I like her, I listen to her still, and I continue to read her books. And I find them tremendously helpful in terms of her encyclopedic knowledge of the system. It doesn't mean that she might not be used by the system so that she can also indoctrinate a huge quantity of the Earth's population. That's what we have to understand. So that's why we can't put our faith, not in me, not in any podcaster. You run with what you see is right. But look carefully if you don't see like them calling out people. Like I will see people who call out Miss Mia Motley. And they will talk about her and what she's doing about climate change, and they're against climate change. And when I say to them, what about Jeffrey Sachs? Oh, no, Jeffrey Sachs is okay. Right? And they'll send me things about Jeffrey Sachs and what he's saying. So if you're against Miss Mia Motley, why aren't you against Jeffrey Sachs? And these are the people that you have to call out. That's what I'm saying to you guys. I'm not saying you should now go and be skeptical of everybody you see or hear, but I'm saying that you must be skeptical in terms of people who are not willing to be balanced in their dialogue and not looking at one person or two persons and another person who is a part of the same system with different style they don't want to call out. And Whitney Webb does not call out Jeffrey Sachs. She does not do it. She stays away from it, and people have presented it to her, and she refuses to do it. So, I don't know. So we have there, of aliens in outer space, you need dopamine. I'm not saying that they are aliens. I'm saying the media are speaking about aliens in outer space. My take on the matter, and I think I've said it many times, they are fallen angels, demonic spirits in high places. Read Ephesians 6 verse 12. We are not wrestling against, human beings and politicians. They are the ones whom we are wrestling against. People are thinking that is the people that they're seeing, that they're wrestling with, and who are in power. But these demonic agencies are what give our politicians messages to do what they are doing. Okay? And that is what people need to understand. Go and study Freemasonry and all of these, societies to which they belong, and you will know. You will know. Now, you're looking for the perfect person. They're none only who, and that is why God says there's no perfect person. Put not your trust in man. That's what the Bible tells you, Pedro. Don't put your trust in man. I'm not looking for any perfect person. I tell you that, not even me. Nobody in this world is perfect. You will find no perfect person. You'll find no great analysis because we are flawed. Every day I come here, I say on this channel, we say we are all flawed human beings. And that is why we can't put our trust in anyone. What I do say, look at the message and not at the messenger. That is why I said it, Pedro. Look at the message. Embrace truth, or what once you can see it, right? And then, but if the person, as I'm saying, and let me say it again, is speaking against one person who are part of who's a part of the globalist agenda, and refuse to speak against another person who has a different style but have the same agenda, you cannot trust fully that person. That is what I am saying. And Whitney Webb is a very good, great young woman, and she speaks a lot of truth, but she does not speak the entire truth. This is what I'm telling you. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you should go and not listen to her, or you shouldn't read her books. I read her books. I still listen to her videos, and I find her to be tremendously brilliant, right? But she is not necessarily telling you all the truth. Okay, just like Tucker Carlson too. Tucker Carlson is the same thing. Tucker Carlson is a part of the elites. He speaks a lot of truth. He's articulate. He's a bright man, but he's not revealing everything, and can't, because of his association with the elites. He's a part of that class, and he has to keep it at that. But he's performative, and he can tell people what they want to hear. And in the world we live, because people don't want to hear the real truth or the entire truth, they accept a part of the truth, and then they find themselves deceived. Dart, welcome to the live. Extension is the only thing that will solve the issue. Extension of whom? The people, again, as we're saying, Darth Vader, the people that we think are in control, they have their higher forces that control them, forces that we are not able to see. So extension of whom? Extinction rather, not extension, but extinction of whom, because you can't extinguish these spiritual beings, can you? You and I can't. So that is what we have to, and that is why they're making to us the aliens, because they want us to understand. They're not telling us fully that they are dark forces beyond our comprehension who control the politics and the nations of this world. Okay? So that is why now we must become aware of these things and refuse them, reject them. Extinction of the human species. That's what they're trying to do to all of us. People say, yeah, how are we going to save the system? We can't save the system. The system is rotten. The system is not something that we can see because it's so entrenched and it's so hierarchical that you and I might think that I am the evil person, right? And then there's an evil person above me, and then there's an evil person above the other person who you think is evil, and it never stops, right? So we really are not able to fight the system. The only way we can fight the system, though, is if we become, our eyes are opened, and we begin to what? To not obey, to not comply. However, the fact is that everybody has a truth here. So Tucker Carlson has his truth, that person has their truth over there, that person has his truth over there, and the world cannot live like that. We have to have objective truths, right? If we don't have objective truths, then our population will never be united and fight against a common cause. But the world in which we live right now, they're telling us that truth is relative. And there are just too many truth talkers, what they call it, truth sayers online right now, and many of them are not truth sayers at all. But they will tell you 85, 90% truth, and then you run with that, and the 10% that they withhold or are withholding is what you need to hear, and that which will create the difference, make the difference. I'll give you an example. There is a person that is, you guys have lots of podcasts. I was invited on a podcast, and people will, and I believe in prophecy. I believe in biblical prophecy. That is my worldview. Okay, and when I went on that podcaster never wanted me to talk about biblical prophecy. I have Rastafarians, I have other people of religious. But then when I came off the podcast, you're hearing about praying at the altar. And obviously, that prayer is not going to God. So who is that prayer going to? Who is that person praying at the altar to? But that person will tell you that, I'm not religious. And that's what I'm saying to you. You've got to be careful of people who want to play with your minds, telling you that they're not this and they're not that, and they're showing you that they are, but that they belong or they believe in another occultic god, as it were, right? That person is linked with the occult too. What are you going to say? Hello, blessed Sunday to everyone. Welcome to the live, Alexis. Nice to have you. Haven't seen you for a while. You need to show the pros and cons to decipher. You're right. I agree with you. We have to show the pros and the cons, and the pros and the cons too. And we must not, even if I say something that you don't think is true, you must say, and here are the facts, right? But if I'm clamoring against Miss Kamala Purcell-Bissessar, and I can't say anything against opposition because opposition looks to me, that's my favorite, the PNM, because, they're my favorite ones, then you must be skeptical of me. Why am I simply talking against Miss Kamala Purcell-Bissessar and I say nothing against the PNM, what they're doing? Obviously, both parties are flawed. I should be able to speak good things about Miss Kamala if she does something good, and I must be able to say something if she's call her out, if she's not doing what she should be doing. The same thing for the PNM. What we see coming out of our podcast in this region is that people are so much anti a political character that they don't think that the other opposition is worthy of being called out too. Right? And that is where you need to be skeptical. You can't be on those programs. Why? Because they are dispersing to you propaganda. Because they don't like this political personality. They want you not to like that person too, and then you end up being brainwashed and being deceived. So that's what I'm saying. So if people showed Whitney Webb that John Sachs, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and other people are on the agenda of the globalist agenda, world depopulation, then she should call them out. And she's not doing that. So who controls her? Who controls her? Because Jeffrey Sachs is as high as you can get it. He is a professor at Columbia University, and he is responsible director there for the program of sustainability, Agenda 2030. And he's on record of saying that he is, and that program is going to make a difference globally. So if Whitney Webb is not seeing that, and she sees it and she knows it, she's hiding something. And that's what I'm saying. But I'm not saying that she does not have a lot of truth or a lot of truths that she can share. She has shared them. She continues to share them. right? Another person I watch too is the Corbett report. I watch these people too. But I listen to them, and then I take my, distance when I hear them talk about other things too. Some of them are also involved in their cause. But they speak out against it so that they can have as many viewers and attempt to make you believe. Now, let me say something very carefully here, too. Some people are not aware of the full truth. So let me be also honest and fair. Some people, even though they are knowledgeable, they're not aware of how the system is connected. They can speak about the system and speak lucidly about it like Whitney Webb, but they don't understand the connection. And that is what we have. We have to connect the dots. You can articulate and tell me everything that I need to know about Freemasonry or about any other thing, about Miss Kamala Person Besessor. But if you aren't able to connect the dots and put things together, then guess what? Good luck. You're going to be deceived. And that is what it's all about. To change a system, you have to take part in it. Wow. So you're telling me that in order to change what is happening in politics, we must go and be a part of it? Is that what you're saying, Colonel Jamal? If we wish to change it in its current iteration of being evil and corrupt, well, we could change it if we go there with what? With courage, with moral courage, to challenge the system and to do that which is right. But in the current state of politics, they won't want to accept us, would they? Right? They won't be funding your campaign because they're going to say this person is here to, shake up the system, and that is not what they want you to do. Right? So that's the whole point, So I'm not here to say, guys, don't listen to these people. Listen to as many people on the internet as you can. But do not think that Tucker Carlson and these people that you're listening to are telling you the full truth. They aren't. And they know that. All right? They know that. You are the one who need to read to understand that they're not. Then we have, of any other way? Well, the only way, as I'm telling you, the only way the system is going to be destroyed is that Christ is going to destroy it. That is the only way. The system will have to come down with supernatural force. This world is controlled by supernatural forces, and only with another supernatural force will the system be destroyed completely. Other than that, we can only sound the alarm to people to let them know that they should not be tied up in the system and give them the utopia, as you're saying, Pedro, that the system is going to change by us because we are not supernatural. So we can't fight a system that is supernatural. We can try to change it by living what? Decent lives, and by sounding the alarm, hoping people will what? Will amend their ways and try to accept and embrace truth, and to get evil out of their existence. Because don't tell me our politicians are evil. The citizens are also evil. Or citizens, the world population is also evil, and that is why they deserve the evil, presidents and prime ministers that they're getting. They don't want to hear that, but that is the truth. Right? What we want to do is to drink and have fun and have a good prime minister and leaders there, and they will take care of situation, and everything is going to be all right. And baby, don't worry, right? About a thing, and you dance because that is the sort of utopia that you want to live in. And your government does what it should do, but you don't want to do what you're supposed to do. You don't want to live a morally upright life. So what happens? Nature gives you a wicked president, okay? A wicked government. So accept it and deal with it. So we have to also reform, from me to you, to all of us, to make sure that we are reflecting the pulse of a righteous nation, a nation that can be blessed. I find that the elites, Chris is saying, agenda is contradictory and seems to get in its own way. Yes, because remember now that we know that it's ordo ab cao. So yes, it is a contradictory because they want to also confuse us. The more confusing and confounding it is, then they can arrest our attention. We begin to debate and to quarrel and to have arguments over who is better and who is worse. And then eventually they take over. Say, ordo ab cao. That is the the slogan of the New World Order. And they're doing a fine job of it, aren't they doing it? Only if people will try to seek knowledge and truth and wisdom and understanding, because the Bible says, all thy knowledge, and wisdom, get understanding. So a lot of us do have wisdom in terms of knowledge too, and people can begin to spit out knowledge, and you say, wow, that person is bright and is brilliant, but is not connecting the dots, and that person is going to lead you into the dark way. I like natural, not supernatural anti-creation. Well, it is not what you like, it's what it is. And that's another thing, Pedro Gemot. We're living in a world where people have to speak the way how people want them to speak and use language the way how people want. There are supernatural forces in this world. Right? There are supernatural forces in this world, whether we like it or don't like it. Just like there is a God, whether we like it or we don't like it. It doesn't bother God, that you don't believe it. That's your decision, right? But the fact is that there are supernatural powers in the world, okay? And that is just there's no other way to describe it. And the prime ministers and presidents, they know that. They interact with some of these supernatural beings. US and Israel have a green light for Morocco, that's Tony, welcome to the live, to let 50K, immigrants or migrants swarm Spanish colonial territory of Ceuta because Spain didn't tow the satrap line, choke points, Gibraltar, Suez, and Bosphorus, Hormuz, etc. Yes, I've heard that. I've listened to that that narrative. But there are many things coming out of what we're seeing. If you notice, as I presented on my live yesterday, Tony, if you had listened to my live, we were also talking about the fact that the Pope of Rome was actually in Spain in June. And he was there, and his last stop in the Isla there, the Canary Islands of Spain, he was suggesting that Spain need to accept these immigrants, and that they are, when they leave their country, he says that they went there with their dignity, and Spain should maintain their dignity. Now, the Pope of Rome is actually, Spain is a Catholic country, predominantly a Catholic country, so whatever the Roman Catholic Church tells Spain to do, she has to do it, right? She has to do it. And there is an agenda. There is an agenda by the United Nations to have these open borders. And who controls the United Nations, by the way? The Vatican. Many people don't understand that. And yesterday when no, it's Israel. Israel does not control the United Nations. It is the Pope of Rome who controls that entity. In fact, the United States citizens never wanted to have a United Nations on its soil. And during the break there, the break of Congress, that was when they actually instituted it. So because they understood that a United Nations meant that they were giving up their sovereignty, right? So all of this migrants going into countries and these open free borders is to eradicate our sovereignty. It's a part of the Great Reset agenda, right? Agenda 2030. So yes, Mr. Tony, that's a part of the narrative. I'm not going to negate that, but there are also higher agendas that the world has. And these two can also be true at the same time. Okay, so that's and that's a very good point you're raising there, by the way. Pedro is saying, Chris, look at all the persons who fought for the poor. Fun fact, none experienced being poor start from 60s coming forward. In fact, our politicians are actually getting richer, right? They're getting wealthier every day. And that's the whole point, that they're getting wealthy while we are becoming poor. And they're telling us that we don't have the skills. You don't have the skills to work. And that's why you can't find a job, because you don't have modern skills. And I'm asking myself, what modern skills do our politicians have? Nothing, absolutely none, right? They have no modern skills. They can't even lead. Now, Alexis is saying, we as human beings have power to question things. Absolutely. We do not have to go along with any politician. Yes, but we have the inherent right to. However, if the politicians don't make laws and don't respect and enforce the laws that give us that basic inherent rights, we won't have it. I repeat that. Let's not fool ourselves. If politicians decide to take away our freedom of expression tomorrow, we don't have it. And that's why you had the Dark Ages in Europe, the Middle Ages, the medieval era, because people were not allowed to express themselves by the dictates of their conscience. This is a new phenomenon that came here to America, right? Remember now, in the old world, you were not given that freedom of... I think we're living in a world that we think is normal, and we think what is... And as bad as the US is, if it were not for that country, there is no country in the history of humanity, and you can go and read your history. You can go and read your history in which people offered you freedom of expression. None. Okay? Absolutely none. So when we think that this is something that is normal to speak out our minds, which yes has become normal because we've been living, for over the years, and we've seen freedom of expression, that is not the norm in the world. You can't go to China and speak your mind and of your conscience and talk about Xi Jinping, right? You can't say that. They will, they'll do what they have to do to you, right? Okay. So if the laws are not enforced because they're on the books, then yes, they can take them away from us. And I think that that's what they're working towards now, to take away from us that we can no longer express ourselves about anything that our politicians do. All right? So we have to wake up. I never tell you they are, and some persons see God. I see what you're saying. Chris is saying, I disagree. I don't think the leaders are a reflection of the people, because when the leaders get behind closed doors, they do things that we didn't choose them to do. Trump and Obama are perfect examples. We do the same things too. Right? Many of us, we will pretend as if we are righteous, and how many of us sometimes betray our very neighbors, right? And you say things and you don't keep your word of what you're going to do, and behind the scenes you're plotting against them. So we are the same, right? The only difference is that they are in a position that will impact hundreds of thousands, not millions of people, while we might just impact a few people around us. But yes, in principle, we are the same. Right? Leaders tend to reflect the pulse of the nation, and if the nation is a law-abiding nation, you'll get good leaders. If it is not law-abiding, then you will get evil and vile leaders, and that is what we're having now. And if you look at the world, you see the wickedness of the world, and you see that we are not better than our leaders. Right? We're not. We like to fool ourselves, but we're not. Unfortunately, we're not. Even in apartheid, that man was a lawyer, correct? And we have Chris is saying here, personally, I don't think open borders is really a UN agenda. The Western right wing thinks that way. Mass migration to me is a result of global capitalist destabilization. But what do you think the United Nations is about? The United Nations is about the destabilization of the world, to have a one world government. That's what they want, right? That is the primary agenda of the United Nations. When you look at and if you don't believe that, Chris, when you look at what is happening in Iran and other countries like Russia, and the narrative that we hear from the media, how Russia and China are trying to stand up to the United States and all that stuff. If they were against the global agenda, if Russia and China were against the global agenda, they could easily come out of that United Nations. They are part of the UN Security Council. They could remove themselves. To challenge the US, they could remove themselves and say, what happened? The United States is now a rogue state. It does not believe in freedom. We are going to remove ourselves from the United Security Council and form our own alliance. But they're still there, right? They're still there because they're part of the same agenda. They might have a different approach, right? But the agenda is the same. So the United Nations has an agenda of eradicating borders so that we can be in a one world governance, and some antichrist, whatever you want to call that person, will be ruling. The mark of the beast is tightly linked to all of the world coming together. The world is not together yet, but they're trying as much as they can to bring it together under false unity, which they're going to make religious unity, which will not last, but that is what the agenda really is. Okay? Now we have, Chris, it's the price of the Western elite is willing to pay as a symptom to maintain their system. It's not just the Western system, my friend. It is a global system that we are seeing unfolding right before our eyes. Right before our eyes. I'm sorry that the algorithm decides to suppress the channel, but I wish this was being broadcast to many people for them to understand how serious this live is. Look at the UN agenda and then think, right? It's the agenda is a one world government. To your point, Tony is saying the International Criminal Court, ICC, gets its authority from the Rome Statute, which is a modern international treaty adopted in 1998. Yes, and it's there, and it's not even my point, people. It's there. If you just look at who controls Freemasonry and the occult world, if you look at the history of the Jesuits, of Rome, you are going to see that the Roman Catholic Church and the papacy controls the entire world. No presidency in the United States is selected before they go to that meeting, before they cast a vote. What they call that meeting again? The David, whatever, Al Smith or whatever his name is, right? And that is where you see the bishops and of the Roman Catholic Church in the United States, and they attend. I remember I was telling people that Trump was not going to win the election, right? That was my philosophy, that he wasn't going to win because the elites never wanted him back into power. However, when I saw that the time when the Catholic Church have met with the candidates who were going up for the presidency and Kamala was missing from that meeting, I pondered in my heart. I said, it might be that they're selecting Trump again. And it was so. It was so. Because the Roman Catholic Church placed their special anointing on Trump. And even when he went up against Hillary Clinton, when they went to the same Al Smith meeting there before the election, right, you could see the preference of the Roman Catholic. Just look back, it's on YouTube. You could see that their special anointing was upon Trump, because the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican, the Holy See, is a fascist institution. It's a religio-political institution, and it suggests that its spirituality, its religion, stands above all kings and queens, including the President of the United States of America. Nothing, as I read to you yesterday, and this was coming from a Roman bishop in the United States, it says that after the Marshall Plan in 1947, there or 45, thereabout, after World War II, that the United States foreign policy and that of the Vatican are one. The United States foreign policy and that of the Vatican are one. It's there on the internet. Read it. And stop back and forth. It's Israel, it's Zionist. It's not the Zionists. They are tools. Yes, they are tools of the Vatican, but they are not the ones who have the final word. Very important that you understand these very deep conversations that I'm giving to you right here. Right? And I'm wasting my energy and my breath to tell you these things, and you don't want to research them. They were together during Vivid, that's COVID, but the glue, the digital ID, was missing to make it complete. Absolutely, it was just a digital ID. That he's correct. That is the only thing now that they're waiting on. The digital IDs and the digital currency, the global currency that they are going to use. After those things have been implemented, it is over. It is over. It is finished. Okay? Because if we think we have, I have freedom of expression, well, use it now. Use it now to warn the people that something dangerous is lurking and is going to enslave them. That is the time. This is the time to use it. It's not that it's going to be forever. Because very soon, they will tell you that you don't have freedom of expression. You say whatever the government tells you to say. What AI tells you to say, you have to accept it. Chris is saying, I disagree with you on the fact that all the nations are following the same agenda. When you lack certain explanations, it seems all the nations are in it together. No, it's not that I lack certain explanations. It's that the entire world should know now that after the pandemic that they were doing the same thing. How is it that you had a virus that came from China, according to what they tell us, And that is essentially all the world did the same thing. Never in the history of humanity, even for poverty, has the world ever come together for or around a simple thing such as a virus. Now, tell me if something bigger happens than a virus, if we have like an invasion of aliens to our societies, don't you think they are going to do the same thing? When you got climate change, it's the same thing. All of them, the surveillance state, they're all doing the same thing. Right? So all of these things should tell us now, even if we did not know before COVID, I would understand if we would say, oh, those are conspiracies, right? But now we are seeing that these are not conspiracy theories, they are conspiracy facts. That the world is moving in the direction of a one world order, where human beings are going to be foisted up on an agenda, a global, spiritual, political agenda that they will have to commit themselves to. The mark of the beast, right? You know, people, when they saw the pandemic and what was happening, people who were non-religious said this is exactly what Revelation was talking about. Do you know how many people went back to Revelation during the pandemic? And that was nothing. What happened during COVID was nothing compared to what they have planned for you and for me. We've got now to open up our eyes. Things are running fast. They're moving speedily, and we've got to get our acts together. Then we have, sometimes I feel that we paint with a broad brush and look at everything through the same lens when there are valuable nuances. We don't listen to these nations from their perspective. Yeah, and that's what I would like to see, Chris. I would like to see Iran, talking against the world, the United Nations, and call out the United Nations for what it is doing, right? I would like to see Iran and Russia leave the United Nations. Maybe if they leave the United Nations tomorrow, even if they're acting, maybe I would reconsider. I would like to hear one of them talk against what happened during COVID, right? And what happened, and tell us the truth, whether it came from the United States or it came from wherever it came from. Right? But they're not, all of them are the same thing. They're doing the same, they did the same thing and are still doing the same thing. They talk about climate change in the same manner. And China already has built her surveillance state. The West is only following China in terms of building that massive surveillance state in which we will be surveilled. So you tell me, how different are they? But culturally, I will accept that culturally, nuances have to be discussed. That I can agree with. But in terms of the agenda, in terms of the global agenda, it's the same. And you know what? Okay, let me just say this clearly. The elites control the world. So the elites definitely have divisions in terms of they're divided over what spoils they should get. So whatever differences you're seeing between Iran and the United States elites, not the American citizens or the Iranian citizens, the elites, they're divided over the spoils of the world's resources. That is where now the division is. And when we see it, it seems like it is nations, nations fighting against nations, but it is the elites who are moving and pushing the war because they are the ones who are making huge dividends therefrom, and they want to protect the wealth for themselves and no others. Only 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? Only 2 weeks. And UN lies fascist ideals. And you're correct. UN is as fascist as you can get. And by the way, have you ever asked yourself, Chris, the question, if you're still online, the United Nations was founded to sort of, help with, lessening the wars that we have around the world, reducing, I should say, the number of wars we have around the world. But since they have been in existence, we have been having wars even more frequently. I mean, that is also another irony. That is also another irony. And that is what are they really anti-war or are they pro-war? Right? We have to ask ourselves these hard and intelligent questions. But again, our people are not willing to ask, the hard questions. They want to go along with what they learned in school and think that the United Nations is there to be the mediator of wars while they are actually behind, warmongering, because they are. They just go to and make their nice. Okay, when you look at the United Nations, the Vatican behaves the same way. These Roman priests, right? They will go to church and the Lord, Holy Father, and they are the what? They are the most righteous people that you'll ever find on the planet. And some of the things these priests do, why do you think Martin Luther left the church when he found the Lutheran church? He was a Catholic. He was a staunch Catholic. And when he went to the Vatican and he saw what the debauchery that was at Vatican City, he said, no, this is terrible. He said he had never seen anything, even by people, even by sinful people. And yet these people in their white robes, the Lord gives, and the United Nations are the same thing. Every year, our presidents and prime ministers go to United Nations and make these very lofty speeches, and they want peace around the world, and this and that. And at the end of the day, more wars. Doesn't make any sense. Does not make any sense at all. Alexis is saying, I'm happy that the system of things are coming to an end. The deceit that mankind is involved in and has been for centuries is shattering. You're correct. We have made progress, and at the same time, we have made none. You're correct. When we take 2 steps forward, we take 3 steps backward. And that's why when we think we are modern to an extent, but we are becoming very antiquated. Even the people in ancient times were more civilized than we are now. We are not a civilized race. People, we are not a civilized race. When you can see Trump just, striking Iranians for nothing, just going over there and just striking people for nothing, they have done nothing to you, it suggests to us that this world has to end. Because if it does not end, we are going to kill ourselves. No human flesh will be alive very shortly because something is wrong with human thinking. It's not humane to just go and bomb people, strike them, and they have done you nothing. Chris is saying a Russian general did speak against COVID and did explain exactly where it came from. His name is Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov. Ukrainians assassinated him like a year or 2 ago. Yeah, so you'll have people, just like in the United States, right, who will speak out and speak the truth. It doesn't mean, therefore, that it's coming from the political arm, and you said it, that they unalived him. So it means that they unalived him because he was speaking the truth. So I think you've answered your question, Chris. But it wasn't coming from the mainstream political body politic. Okay? And that's what we have to understand. The Roman Church got its branches who believes in the crucifixion. Yeah, so that is what we have to understand. Well, Tony, you've got to read. I can't. Your trip. I'm a trip or you're a trip. You must decide that. Am I a trip or are you a trip? You're not reading enough, then I can't help you. I can only tell you what you need to hear. I can't tell you what you want to hear. And oftentimes our people get on podcasts because they want to hear what they want to hear. Hence, people are ignorant and there is no knowledge in our society. And that is why the politicians and these people are going to win us. Truth is the ultimate victor, whether you like the truth or you hate it, because truth is often very difficult to come back with. Okay, there are lots of people who I love, saying like the Whitney Webbs, loved her to death during the pandemic. I embraced her, and then as soon as I began to look more on her, I realized that she's not as what she put 100% as we would like her to be, right? So that is that is. Oh, I skipped your comment. I didn't see it. I'm sorry. If I don't skip comment normally, sometimes the YouTube, if you notice that YouTube is actually suppressing the channel. So there are sometimes I might see 17 people here, and there could be more on the platform. But the YouTube the algorithm is doing something that I don't understand. And I think the YouTube, yeah, is suppressing some of your. I don't suppress content, even when you're talking out against me. I don't care, right? Once you're not using what you call it now, once you're not using expletives, and I will have to probably ban you. But if you disagree with me, I don't hide your comments, right? Nothing. That's why we're here, for you to disagree with me and for us to have a debate. You don't think Trump being moderate with his arsenals? No, I think that he's being evil, right? Moderate in the sense that it could have been worse, yes. But why attack a nation that has not threatened you? Right? Like we could understand if that nation was a threat and you had to defend yourself, but Iran is of no threat to the United States, and the Iranians, by no stretch of imagination, pose any threat to Western or United States civilization. So that is what I'm saying, that we have become too. If you can rewrite them, but I don't know. Let me go back to see if I see them, Tony. I think I did. You skipped comments. Some things never change. Oh, this is what you have. Okay. You had skipped my comments. Some things never change. I've avoided your streams for a couple of months and tried to give you another chance, but here we go again. Yeah, remember now, Tony, I don't normally, what do you call it now, eradicate or take away comments. So if I did that, I'm sorry, because you are normally respectful, okay? You're not like Land Champion is going to come and call you names and all that stuff. So anything you can put, but let me say something to you guys. The algorithm cuts comments, right? The algorithm cuts comments, and they don't want the live to go abroad, to go further. So that's why they also could be cutting some of the comments. So be careful. Don't think I am the one, literally. I don't cut people's comments unless they are very out of order, right? And generally, I have patients that sometimes I even do put them up on the screen, the ones who tend to be disrespectful. But this algorithm cuts your comments off at a point. Yes, it does. And I think that it's even cutting off my access to, I could have 100 person on this live, but they don't want me to have it. So, I just have to accept what they give me, Chris is saying, yes, Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov was a serving general when he exposed COVID. He was not the only general the Ukrainians deleted. He died because of the war. The Russians exposed the biolabs all over Ukraine, right? There are lots of narratives. Some are telling us, like, Jeffrey Sachs is saying it came from the United States, right? It came out of North Carolina University. They're on, I think, Chapel Hill. Okay, and then, we are hearing another narrative from this, the lieutenant that is coming out of Ukraine because of the biolabs there. Then we're hearing that it came out of Wuhan. What are we to believe? That's the whole point. What are we to believe? And that's what we're seeing. Where is it coming from? And they're all covering up. Whether it's Russia or it's China or it's the United States, they are covering up. And the same guy there, the same Jeffrey Sachs that you see that is a snake, he's covering up too, because he's saying he is giving us this definitive response that it came out of North Carolina when he does not really know, and he's not really looking at the pros and the cons of in Wuhan or in Ukraine or in in North Carolina, as he said. So these are the people that we need to be careful of. When they begin to give us one version, I don't know. I thought it was Wuhan, but I still have my question that it could be the United States. Some people are saying Fort Detrick labs. Some people are saying North Carolina. What is true? We don't know. And that's why we don't want people like Jeffrey Sachs to come and tell us that he knows everything and this is what, and then he leaves out China. And he's saying that the Chinese, they received it in like a an envelope, and it escaped. But if that was the case, if that is the truth, why did it not start first in the United States? Why did it begin first in China? Weird. And these are things Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who claims to be very intellectual and scholarly, he's not answering these questions, is he? And then we have maybe for the nation's threat to America, or you're ignoring. No, what is a threat? What was a threat, Pedro? I don't know of any threat. And I'm not, I have spoken out against what is happening in Iran. I take no sides, but I have to say, based on what I have read, what I have seen, I don't think Iran is in any way of, provoking a war. That I've not read any paper, haven't read any article that suggested that. If you have, Pedro, you can show that to me. Sean, welcome to the live. Sean, cool. Long time I haven't seen you. YouTube use risk scoring algorithm to ghost comment that may be inflammatory. I got you. But here on the channel too, they have been suppressing the channel. I don't know for what reason, but they have decided. And when I contact them, they have no reason for, oh, it's working as normal, as intended. I'm saying, is that so? Because it's not working as intended. And the more I contact them, I contact YouTube about my channel, is the more they suppress it. And I've told them that too. That when I contact them, they suppress it even more. They put further sanctions on the channel. You should not challenge them. And that's why I'm saying to you that we're living in an autocratic world. We're living in an authoritarian society because YouTube is not in China, it's in the States. Igor, yes, let me get back to your comment, Tony, Chris. Igor Kirillov didn't say the virus came from Ukraine. He said it came from the US and said Obama, Biden, and Clinton used US institutions to create. I got you. So he's more on the side of, what Professor Jeffrey Sachs said. So why did they kill him and not, well, I shouldn't say kill, unalive. Why did they unalive him and not Professor Jeffrey Sachs? Not that I'm asking them because we wouldn't want Professor Jeffrey Sachs to be unalive, certainly not. But the fact is that why did they just unalive him? And he and Jeffrey Sachs are saying the same thing. It's good to listen to person and see what they're saying or not saying. Right. Yeah, but I'm saying just tell us where, if you have further knowledge that Iran or the Iranians were provoking the U.S. citizens, we can see. But I don't think that they were or still are of any threat to the United States. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Tony Tiger Great is saying the first comment that you skipped, you had pulled up on the screen for like 2 minutes, but were monologuing, so you might have not. I got you. Yet it wasn't shadow banned. I thank you. Sometimes, because nobody's helping me here with the technical things here on the screen, so I have to do everything. So sometimes, yes, and I might talk and then forget that I had it on the screen. I apologize sincerely. Chris is saying the last American vagabond on Rumble was saying that right before COVID happened, people were, yes, I said that too, getting sick around Fort Detrick, right, there were reports of it. In Washington, D.C. and Maryland area, right, people were saying that they were getting sick, and they said that when the virus came out roundabout in, was it like February, it was confirmed, people were saying, but we felt the same thing, here from August, September into that area, that winding down into the end of the year of 2019, people were saying that they were sick in the United States, and they said they felt the same symptoms as COVID as they were talking about COVID. So yes, you're right. We don't know what happened because every day, by the way, every day they have their gain of function experiments. So sometimes when we're sick too, when we have flus and other things, we don't know if it's coming from Mother Nature. Sometimes it might be coming from a lab. So this is nothing new. It's only that they went overboard to get us scared that people fell for their deceptions. Death to Ahmed to CA has been shouted for decades. And then we have Tony saying, I won't beat a dead horse though. Not sure what you mean by here, Tony. Tony, are you that sensitive? I'm telling you what I can only apologize and tell you that I did not see your comment. And if I had your comment on the screen, and I inadvertently went on, it's not deliberate, but just that sometimes you're moving quickly and comments are coming in. So I apologize, okay? And that's what I can't tell you that. In fact, many of the other lives you go on, they don't read all the comments. I'm the one trying to read all the comments and making sure that I respond respectfully as much as I can. Most lives I go on lives too, and they pass my comments many times. I don't take it personally. I just move on. Journalist Vanessa Beeley and Last American Vagabond pointed out that some nations, to protect themselves, had to be seen at least pretending to adhere to the mandates. I see what you're saying. That's a good point you're raising there. And Tony saying, I do appreciate your insights and analysis, not always agreeing with your conclusion. And that's what it's about. That we don't always have to agree, because sometimes we might agree right now, but sometimes some things take time to process and also to you to do your research. When I talk here, I expect you to do your own research. When I say the Vatican controls the world, go and do your research about the Jesuits, the history of the Jesuits, and you will see. By the way, there's a book online that you can read, Rome, a Menace to the United States. Go to United States Freedom, something of the sort. Let me see if I can find that book online and tell you the name. Go and read those books, guys. You have to read, You can't just look at Tucker Carlson shows and the popular ones, and they're telling you the Zionism, and they talk their talk, and you think that is the truth. You have to question. That is about intellect. Let me see if I can find that book. Romanism. This is a very good book that was written by an American, by the way. Romanism, a menace. Let me see. I'm trying to find that book to send it to you guys. A menace to U.S. freedom. Something of the sort. Let me see if it will come up on Google. Yes. A menace to the nation. That is what it is. Romanism, a menace to the nation. And it was written by an American, so it was American state that he was talking about. But it is to the world. But he was writing about America. Let me see if I can send it to you now. Romanism. And it was by Crowley, Jeremiah Crowley. A menace to the nation. Let me copy this and paste it in the thing. Yeah, so let me send this to you now. Please look at this book, Romanism, a Menace to the Nation. You've got to read books like these and the history of the Jesuits to find out what is really happening. You're not going to get this at in your normal school, thing. It's not the world is not educating you about Romanism. Right now, many of you are indoctrinated to think religion is stupid, it is simplistic, and because you don't understand it, then you're going to find yourselves deceived by the same system, which indoctrinated you not to take religion seriously. But religion ought to be taken seriously, right? It has never gone anywhere, right? And even during slavery and after slavery, it played its role, right? For and against. Then we have Chris is saying, thank you very much, the West could weaponize an appearance of disobedience to the mandates against your whole nation. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that the Roman Catholic Church is a part of the West. Yeah. The Roman Catholic Church is a part of the West. So, and it has over 2,000 years of existence. The United States is only 250 years in terms of its independence. But the Roman Catholic Church and its institution and its global dominion is over 2,000 years. Now tell me who can beat that? Do you think that institution is something that's a boy? In the eyes of the United States, right? In the eyes of the Roman Catholic papacy, the United States is just a child, right? Just a child, an infant, as far as Rome is concerned. In fact, the United States is Rome divided. When you go to Washington, D.C., you cannot but think that this is Rome. The entire design of Washington, D.C. is Rome, is Roman, right? So the history is there. If we want to, beautiful history. It's a very scary history and dark history of how Rome is actually, and I also cited yesterday Rulers of Darkness by Saucy, right? He also has written the history of the United States and how it was formed by the Vatican. So we think that the United States is a free country, but the Vatican has a way of working on both sides. It can pretend as if it's there to be nice and morally upright. At the end of the day, it's the most brutal and vicious organization that humanity has ever witnessed. It's vicious, right? And just ask the priests of this Roman institution, of the Roman Catholic Church, and you'll see. It is not a free institution. It does not believe in freedom at all. And it loves wars. Because when they war, then the Vatican says, okay, I'm the peace mediator. peace. And then people believe it, and then they say, wow, look at the Pope. The Pope of Rome is calling for peace when they what? Peace is what? War. War is peace, right? That's what the guy said in 1984, that war is peace and ignorance is strength. Ignorance is strength, right? And look at the numbers of people listening to nonsense, and they think that they're strong and that they're going to actually fight against the system and they're going to win. And they don't even know who the enemy is. They don't know that the enemy is right there, right at their doors. They think that the enemy is Zionism. But all of these people are your enemies, right? And Freemasonry, Zionism, Roman Catholicism. It's Babylon. And Babylon, the Babylonic system, if you read the history of Babylon, you will see that it was an amalgamation of different false associations of religions coming together that controlled that empire, right? So now we're living in a Babylonic system again, where we see an amalgamation of these Freemasonry, the Illuminati, right? Roman Catholicism, the Jesuits, the astrologers, all of these people, those who believe in aliens, and they are showing us now that they are in control. They're in control, and they're going to take our jobs. They're going to, in flux have these foreigners come to your countries and take away our national sovereignty. Let me just get to you and leave here, since you're tired like I am. China was the blueprint for COVID, even who protected them. Absolutely, they were the blueprint. There's no doubt about that. Roman Church is who give the world a virgin birth, not the Roman Church at all. The Roman Church was not even the Roman Church was not in existence then. Rome as an empire was under Christ. The Vatican and the Roman Church came in existence years after the fall of the pagan Roman Empire. That is why we have to read, So what they call the Roman, what they call Petra Jamat, the Roman, the mother of Christ, Mary, is Isis, really. It's the pagan god. Okay, that's what you have to understand. Everything that you see, all the images in the Roman Catholic Church is coming from pagan religion. It's a pagan institution, dressed up as a religious institution. I'm well versed on Roman Christian history and never said I was in disagreement with your take on Catholicism, so please don't patronize me. I'm not patronizing you. Never patronizing you. So you can tell me what you're in disagreement with then. You're telling me what you agree with, tell me what you disagree with. But yes, that is correct. It would seem as though the US has patterned itself after Rome a lot. Yes, it is. In fact, President Bush, after 9/11, says that we are the new Rome. Do you know that he said that? Go online, you can see it. President George W. Bush, after 9/11, he said that the United States is the new Rome. Alexis is saying, I agree. Many times I have observed that Rome has not died, and they were and are, yes, brutal. It's a brutal system. And when you go to Latin America, it's only when you're in the United States that you see it acting very subtle. When you go to countries like Latin America, Rome is active. When you go to Brazil, you go to Colombia, you go to Peru, you go to all these countries, she doesn't hide. You know she's visible and she controls all the politicians, and they can't be in power without her sanctions. But in the United States, because she has not yet gained full control, she behaves like a snake, subtly trying until she is going to overpower the entire system. Because if you read history too, the Roman Catholic Church did say that the Constitution of the United States is her enemy. And she lambasted the United States when it was talking about freedom of expression, the separation of church and state. The Vatican does not believe in that. The Vatican believes that the church should have supremacy over the government. I just want you to understand these things. The Roman Catholic Church and the Vatican believe, and you can read it for yourself, go online. These things can be Googled, people. You don't have to go to a library, right? Where the Roman Catholic Church says that the church is superior to the state. So whatever the church says, the state has to follow. Go to any Latin American country and you'll see that. Okay? So she's in the United States now, and she's slowly but surely, this is the most Catholic president, or, that the United States has ever seen under Trump. Right? The most Catholic. Senators and, representatives. So we are in trouble. And we think that we're living in normal times. Oh, Trump, and he's going to leave. Okay. And it has not only been happening in Trump, from George W. Bush right down to Obama to Trump. Every successive president, the Roman Catholic Church is playing much more of a gigantic role in those administrations. Yes, and Trevor is saying, and Freemasonry began with the Vatican as well as via the Knights of Templar, right? And the Knights of Templars also belong to the Vatican. All these knighthood and all. So all comes full circle, and Washington is littered with their symbols. Like what you said, beautiful. Only Trevor can write like this. Beautiful language is littered with their symbols, as well as other major cities and those in the Caribbean. Absolutely. And by the way, Miss Mia Motley, before she took on her and she became aggressive and won her third consecutive term in office, that she was with the Vatican, with the Pope of Rome before he died. That was Pope Francis. And she was receiving her doctrines of climate change from him to indoctrinate you, right? And to make you know that you are under their control. Pedro is saying, and be pagan birth Jesus is what the Romans give you. No, the Romans did not give. The Romans are not responsible for Christ. In fact, the Romans were against Christ. The Romans were the ones who killed Christ, unalived Christ, okay? So again, we have to get our history straight. The Roman Church opposes the Bible. And that is why they had the period of the Dark Ages in Europe, where nobody was allowed to read the Bible. Okay? How is it that a book that is so fought against, right, and the West is not even reading it as they used to read it, but it remains the best-selling book of the entire world? It is something that should alarm you, something that should say, something is up with this book. Many wars have been fought against it, yet it's still in the West, even though it's there for you to read. You don't read it. So many people are not reading it. They don't know what is inside. They only hear what people tell them, and they robotically repeat it. Yet still it remains, even today, from the time of the publisher that they started publishing in Europe in the 14th or 15th century. It still remains the best seller of any book. That is something that you need to think about. That's deep. Pedro is saying Roman. So we are Roman and Church of England worked their magic. Yeah, remember the Church of England is the Church of Rome still. They just came up because they had some disagreement that King George VIII should not have had a divorce, because the Roman Catholic Church doesn't believe in divorce. And the king wanted to divorce and marry the woman that he wanted to get married to, and they separated. But remember now that many of these churches, including the Church of England, did join up back with Rome. The Lutherans, many of these so-called Protestant churches in the early 2000s, they decided to align themselves again with Rome, to suggest that, let bygones be bygones, we're coming back to you, because Rome considers herself to be the what? The mother church. She thinks that all churches in Christendom belongs to her and should pay her homage. People, this is some deep stuff we're studying tonight. Make sure you're doing your research, because you're going to realize that Zionism is not what controls the world. Roman fasces, you have fascia, right? Symbols displayed in every U.S. State House, Congress and courts. Are you listening to what Trevor is saying? Let me repeat that. Roman fasces, or fasciae, they say, symbols displayed in every U.S. State House, Congress and courts. U.S. Supremacy Clause is moored to doctrine of discovery, 15th century Reconquista, papal bulls per Supreme Court. Rome was also responsible for slavery. And that is why the United States W.E. Du Bois said that the United States has committed a sin of slavery. The sin of slavery is a sin that has stained the United States forever and will never be eradicated. Because that was a child of Rome. Slavery was a child of the Roman Catholic Church. So when the United States went there and were saying, oh, we are Protestants and we believe in freedom and democracy and all that stuff, yet still she was what? Practicing a child of the papacy, which is what? Slavery. That's why you see the Pope of Rome now, he's going to Africa and he's going to all these places in Latin America and telling, forgive the papacy for what they did. Oh, yeah. Oh, do you know that lots of the artifacts from slavery and the wealth, the Vatican is still stored in the Vatican? Maybe trillions of dollars. And talk about, what do you call it now? What do you call it? Reparations. Talk about reparations. The Vatican has enough money. The Vatican alone has enough wealth to reimburse us. Is Miss Mia Motley, when she went to see Pope Francis, did she ask him for reparations for Barbados? She didn't. Right? She wouldn't dare to ask the Pope for that because she would lose her power and her authority. Selassie was a knight in the British orders of Bath and Garter, whereas Mandela was a knight of Malta. By the way, Tony, that's a very important point, because the other day I saw this on, was it TikTok or YouTube, and there was this university lecturer at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica, and somebody approached him and said that, well, Selassie was, a knight, and he was like, no, and, because he wanted to move away. But you could say he was lying. You could see that he was lying because he doesn't want to know that Selassie was controlled to and connected to the whole Babylon system. Because the Rastafarians say that they are anti-Babylon, when in fact, their leader was connected to the system. And that is why we have to be careful. Because the Rastafarians talk a lot of nice talk, and freedom and Africa and all of that stuff. And everything is connected to the Babylon system, including Pan-Africanism. We're not going to talk about that today, but one day we're going to show you that Pan-Africanism is connected, and in its current iteration, not Mr. Pereira now, in its current form, the ones coming out of university are all tied with the CIA and with the Church of Rome. And guess who controls the Church of the CIA? The CIA is called the Catholic Intelligence Agency, by the way. So the Roman Catholic Church controls the CIA, and the CIA controls Pan-Africanism. And you think you are a Pan-Africanist, right? You're black and you're running up. Okay, you're deceived. Then it's amazing how this world is interesting, isn't it? Good storybook, like any other book man writes. Well, tell me why it's the bestseller. And this is from like the 15th century. There's no book that humans have ever written that is the bestseller and never has come off the shelf of being the bestseller from all the way back to the 15th century. So you tell me, Pedro Jamat, it's not any ordinary book. Why thank you, good sir? And to your point, they repackaged it throughout the Renaissance. Correct. Yeah, we're getting some good things here now. And all of these things, by the way, what we're looking at is a system of AI. And one of these days, I will come online and show you that the technology is also linked to the Vatican. The military, industrial complex of the United States linked back to the Vatican. The war machine back to the Pope of Rome. If slavery can be linked to her, is her child, you tell me why the wars that are being waged around the world, which are enslaving people right, left, and center, is not her child too. You tell me why. Example, King James' claim of the discovery of Virginia colonies. Right. And what they are telling us that the Vatican, was still involved in that, and you really wonder why. You love Du Bois and not Du Bois, rather, and not Booker. I like Booker T, but I think I prefer Du Bois because I think he was more of a serious intellectual. on slavery than Booker T. Booker T. Washington is very good for practical things in terms of if you want to develop business in a practical way. I think he is the go-to. When you want to move from the intellectual, the theory, to the more practical way, this is Booker T. Washington's strength. You know, all of us have different strengths. And even last night, ladies and gentlemen, I was reading something where even African Americans are beginning to say, oh, if we didn't have Dr. Luther King, we would have been better. Don't say that. All of these men played distinctive roles. Don't put down Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for Malcolm X. They are two different men, right, with two different visions and talents also of making life better for black people and African Americans. So why are we comparing them now and trying to pit one against the other? I would never pit Du Bois, even though I quote him a lot, over Booker T. Washington, because both of them have their relevance, right? Who buying them? Maybe governments, hence bestseller. No, people are buying them. And by the way, people, because you think you're so prosperous in the West right now, until they remove the prosperity from you, Jamaat, and you don't have food and everything, and you're poor like many other people, lots of time God will have to remove all of these conveniences from us for us to call on his name. When we have prosperity, or gods, or what we buy from Amazon, right, and enjoying a certain lifestyle until it is gone. And who are we going to call on? On the government? They're not going to help you. Tony Tigers is saying, Selassie was knighted in the British Order of Bath Knight Grand Cross in 1924, a decade prior to his Tewahedo imperial coronation under Alexandrian Coptic ecclesiastical authority. Yes, thank you for that fact, Tony. That is much appreciated. In fact, many of our governor generals, Tony, are that too. You know, like you have some of these guys who say they're Christians and they're Protestants, and yet all of our governor generals in the Caribbean, right? I think Barbados doesn't have a governor general now, do they? But most of the countries in the Caribbean who have governor generals, they all belong to the Bath, the Knight of Jerusalem, or some of these secret societies. So aren't they all the same? Aren't they all tied in the system? Whether they're Catholics or they're Anglicans or they're Baptists or they're Seventh-day Adventists. Like right now, the one in Jamaica is a Seventh-day Adventist, and he is whatever to the Order of Jerusalem. You know? So you know that everybody, whether you are this or that, you're connected to the system. If you make yourself, right? If you make yourself, it's your choice. You can reject the system. You can say, I don't want to become any knight of the whatever they call these secret societies, so don't select me as any governor general. I won't be one, and if you want to elect me, I am not going to be a part of that agenda. But I don't think you cannot. Like once you say you're a part of that, you have to do it. And we have Pedro saying, who else to call? God destroyed is what you said. God is destroying because of evil. He's justice. You know, one of the things we want, if I should come, Pedro Jamot, and I unalive people in your house, you want justice, right? So when you go to the court, and if you don't get justice from the courts of Barbados, you're going to curse and carry on. Oh, Barbados, judicial system is terrible. But when God exercised judgment, we blame him for doing that. When he exercised judgment, that is just, because he sees everything and knows everything. Our judges and lawyers don't know everything. They can only say and give us, and many times they don't give us justice, by the way. But even if they're doing their best, they still don't know. They don't have all the facts. They don't have everything, all the knowledge. Yet still we blame God. When God gets rid of people, when you would want those people, Gemma, to be gotten rid of because they might have done a terrible deed to your family. Let's be fair here now and stop thinking that God goes around killing people, because he doesn't. Right? He unalives them or permits that to happen because they were evil and they were warned and they did not listen. Many times they got hundreds of warnings and they never listened, and they would have been a menace to the society. So he had to do what God does best, dispense justice. All right? So let's not be now unreasonable and listen to what people are saying and not use our brains to think. Now, we have Pentarchy of, that's Tony, Pentarchy of Christendom evolved from Roman Tetrarchy, which is the origins of the original church, patriarchs versus state Monarchs. Yeah, because the Roman Catholic Church controlled all the kings and the queens of Europe, right? And all the kings and the queens. By the way, when Pope Francis was in power, he was the one trying to unite the entire religions of the world. Notice that the Muslims went to see him and they bowed before him. The Hindu, priest or priestess went over there and they bowed to him. Just go and read it. You will see these things happening, and they were happening right throughout his president, his papacy. That's Pope Francis. He was there. He had come now to unite the entire religions of the world on the same umbrella of the papacy. Okay, and so we have to read these things. We have to become aware, and just don't think you're just living in a political world. You're living in a world surrounded by religious policies and events, and you've got to be aware of them, of both. And by the way, when you study religion, mathematics, science, everything that needs to be studied, your brain gets more expanded, and you begin to think more critically. I can tell you that. Don't just think that you must just do math and all you look at is math, right? If you're doing languages, do some math. That's what they're saying. If you want to maintain your brain, you do some math and use both sides of the brain, right? You study language, do some math, some algebra, whatever you like to do, right? Study some science, some basic science, because it will help you to think. It will help you to think. And read your Bible. You might not believe it, but it is the book of all books. It is the bestseller book of the world, just like Shakespeare, and it stands over Shakespeare many times. You read Shakespeare, right? Because you were told that it is the model of English language, and you should read it. And if you don't know English language unless you have read Shakespeare's works, and Shakespeare was influenced by the Bible. Read Shakespeare's work. If you understand the Bible, you see all the themes, the biblical imageries coming out of Shakespeare's works, right? Because the Bible was what influenced them, even the scientists of those times, because of the Enlightenment. And it was the first time they were hearing that you can question authority, and you can tell them that you don't agree with that, or you don't agree with this. And that is how the scientific revolution came about, after the biblical light came to being and people started reading and questioning. The Bible made them to do that. So when you think the Bible makes you stupid, the Bible is deeper than any calculus than you can ever study, because it's the Word of God, and God is all knowledgeable. He created the universe. So how could you think that the Bible is subservient to whatever you're studying in school? That does not even stand up. Everything combined does not stand up to the knowledge of the Word of God. None. And it's a chain of truth that you have to connect. And it's difficult to connect the dots. And that is why I'm able to connect the dots in politics, because I've done that in the Bible, connecting the dots here and there, reading here and here, a little here and there, and connecting truth together. So when you come to politics, you bring that skill with that, and when you come to science, you bring that skill to that area, and you are bright. You are bright. All right? Don't think you're stupid for reading the Bible. Ibrahim, welcome Ibrahim, is that way he was exiled and returned to power by the backing of Europe. It could be. It could be. It could be. But it's just, the way the system is so controlled that people are so dogmatic in their beliefs, the Rastafarians, and they will claim that, this guy wanted to free them. By the way, do you know that as much as the Rastafarians, they claim that Marcus Garvey, and no man remembers Marcus Garvey, that Marcus Garvey did not like Rastafarianism. He did not support them. Okay? Marcus Garvey did not support the Rastafari movement. He thought that they were backward. He thought that they were uncivilized. And when he came and saw any of them in any meeting that he was doing in Jamaica, he sent them to the back. Okay? So when they think that they're the ones who are, making the teachings of Marcus Garvey, and to give them their credit, to some extent they have. I have to be fair to them, that they have made the teachings of Marcus Garvey relevant in the Caribbean and the Jamaican society more specifically. But notice that Marcus Garvey was not pro-Rastafarianism. He did not like that religion, right? In fact, the book that Marcus Garvey said that you or any black man must read is the Bible, and another book that this lady had written, this anti-slavery book in the United States. He said these are the two books. Go and read the philosophy of Marcus Garvey that every black man should read. And he was no fool. Okay? And I don't think Marcus Garvey was very religious in terms of being like a devout Christian. He wasn't. I never saw him as that. But he believed that there is a God. And he realized that spirituality is necessary. Now, Pedro Timothy is saying, I might want to unalienable myself. Get real. I don't know what you mean by that. Please explain that to me. Shakespeare was mimic, Tony saying, rivalry with Cervantes. Yes, and Cervantes de los Caballos. Is it created? Modern author. Is it created, you say? Created modern author. Both esoterically, yes, alluded to the Moorish Andalusian significance of European civilizational development. You're right. In fact, I have been told by Tony, by some Italian, well, one Italian, I shouldn't say some, who told me that, that Shakespeare was not English, he was actually Italian. And he went to Britain and, he adopted that name and, whatever became of that. I don't know how true that is, but that is something that I have heard. Anybody has heard that before? That, that Shakespeare is Italian, of Italian heritage, or Italian because he was born there. But he went to Spain. Just like how Christopher Columbus was not Spanish. He was actually Italian too, but because the Italians would not give him, the support for his discovery, he went to Spain and, Portugal, and, they gave him the support and he came to this world, this part of the hemisphere. There are principles in the Bible that are sound and can easily be followed. I mean, every principle is easily to follow. The problem is that we make, we don't understand a lot of the things there. What is important for us to understand is that the Bible also was, came through human history and culture. So there are cultural things that might not be applicable to us, right? Like the slaughtering of a lamb and all of these things that the Jews used to do. That's no longer the sort of day and age we're living in. Right, so you're right. There are some principles, but even that too, when studied, helps us to understand the underlying principles that we should also be living in our daily lives even right now. So every word is still necessary. Cause man wrote it, so you put your trust in man after saying earlier not to. Who do you think would have to write it? God is going to write it in his language, in his righteous language, or someone who understands your language but is inspired. So I can inspire you to write a book, my thoughts, my ideas, and that's why some people have to cite the person who helped them with the ideas and probably have them as co-writers. So that's what God did not choose man's words. He inspired them with the ideas and the thoughts that they should express. He was their creator. And that is good too, because it shows that he's conditioning them. When a teacher, for example, a teacher is lecturing, right, at university, the teacher expects you to listen to him or her and write the things, his thoughts, right? And sometimes when we're going to study and we're going to do our exam, many of the times we have to write the exact thought of the professor in our language. Do we understand what I'm saying? So we understand what the professor says, but we are putting back his or her thoughts onto our exam paper because we want to pass our exams, right? But it doesn't mean that it was our ideas. It's the professor's ideas. A lot of times that's what we go back and recycle. So the same thing with the Bible, that God inspired these authors to write, but God did not choose their words, because God wanted them to think also, and God's language is way superior to ours, so we would not understand his language. So he had to speak in a language of men, ordinary men like you and I. And that's the sensible thing to do, as he only knows to do. Then we have Tony saying, imperial diet system of Holy Roman Empire adopted the Moorish Andalus imperial diet and model of governance. Charlemagne's grandfather, the Hammer, stopped rather Moors from taking France at battle. Yes, and that is true. The Moors played a very significant part there in France, in Spain particularly, and even what we're seeing now in Spain. When I saw the Moroccans rushing over, it really made you think about these things, Tony, because you're saying to yourself that the Islam, the Muslims, the Moors were living in Spain for so many years. And by the way, Ceuta is an African territory. Though not it's owned by the Spaniards, but it's really an African territory in the true sense of the word. And then we have, well, tell me what you inspired. Tell me what you inspired, and tell me what you inspired them to say and what to do. By the way, when we look at the Bible too, Pedro, when you read Revelation, Daniel, and all the prophetic books, if man doesn't know the future. Even the politicians rather, even the politicians don't know the future. As much as they're planning for it, they don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. So if the Bible were inspired by men and we don't know the future, how would we have prophetic books that have been proven time and time again to be correct? Right? It doesn't add up, right? Because man cannot tell the future. He just can't. That's indoctrination, the analogy of the professor. Well, education is indoctrination. Do you know that? By the way, education is indoctrination. And let me say something. Nothing is wrong with indoctrination if it's the truth. Right? I'll give you an example. When you go to the toilet, what do? You wash your hands after using it, right? And whatever, you clean up yourself and wash your hands. You were indoctrinated to do that. And many of us do it. Yes, now we are grown up and we know that it's hygiene and all that stuff, but it was good indoctrination. And there are many other things that we do without thinking about it because properly we are indoctrinated to do that, right? So nothing is wrong with indoctrination. The problem is when we don't think about it. And lots of times, even language is also a tool of indoctrination. So lots of times people use words, they don't know what they mean, they only use it because that was what they told you to say, right? Like I give you an example. Good morning, how are you doing? I'm doing well. Are you doing well? Most times, especially if you're studying a foreign language, you're not doing well. But you are indoctrinated to say that, all right, what's up, doing well, that, and you're saying that same sangi every day, because it was a tool of indoctrination. You don't want to tell people you're not doing well and all of that stuff, right? That's the way how it operates. Alexis is saying those principles can be put to a scientific test to find whether it works or not. You can test them even though man wrote it. Now, science is not inspiration. So science is not made to test the word of God because the word of God stands above science. Because remember now that man can only see what he can see. He's not all seeing. He's not all knowing. So he can only observe that which is a part of his experience. What if what he's observing transcends his experience? Then he can't respond. And that is why we can't put religion under the rubric of science. However, as you're saying, Alexis, there are things that can. Like if it's talking about your diet, right? In terms of that, the Bible does give something in terms of being moderate and temperate and what we should not drink and all of that stuff, that the foods that we should eat, those things can be tested. So yes, from that perspective, there are aspects of the Bible principles that can be tested because we can see that if we consume a lot of X or Y or Z, it's not going to be healthy for our bodies. But there are lots of things, inspiration, prophecies, that cannot be tested. God, the existence of God, cannot be tested because God is infinite and we are not. So some things can be, most things cannot, because inspiration is not necessarily scientific. It can be, but not necessarily scientific. It can be philosophical, and it can be things that transcends our human ken, that we can't understand as human beings because of our limited capacities. Name one of the principles. Well, the principle of not stealing, that's a principle. right? Where do you think that is coming from? The principle of being married, right, to one woman or to one man and to have the nuclear family, that is not what the world used to do. Pagan religions, you can marry whoever you want. You can have many women. The polygamist lifestyle, right? Is that what you want to live? Another two, Pedro, thou shalt not covet. Do you know that in communism, if I come to Barbados and you have a big house and you are the only one who live in that house, I can take your house because I have, let's say, I have a huge family. Communism gives people the right to do that, that the end justifies the means. The Bible does not teach that. It says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's possession. So even though your neighbor might have more than you have, you must not envy or be covetous of that person. Right? Not all cultures do that, and these are many other principles, President Jamal, that I could itemize here. When you have to agree to pass a theory, what you call that? When you have to agree to pass a theory, well, that is what scientists do too, by the way. That is what they do in science. They agree when something, let us say, and that's what happened with the pandemic. If a scientist is undergoing an experimentation, and the people who sponsored them, it goes against the model, the profit margin that they should be earning for the corporation that sponsored the scientific research, they have to change it and make the theory suit whatever the profit-making pharmaceutical company want them to do. All right, so don't think that only religion, some people corrupt religion and make the theory suit their worldview. Scientists do that. It's human nature to falsify and to corrupt. All right, so the best thing you want to do is to be honest with yourself and with God. To your point, Tiger is saying, Tony is saying, the symbol of the cross of Lorraine used on your PC keyboard symbols, but how many comprehend the semiotics at their fingertips? Yeah, you're right, and that's the whole thing. I'm here, and that's a very good example you're saying. You're raising, Tony. A lot of times I just type and I don't know what I'm doing. You know, but I'm because I'm conditioned. So nothing is wrong with conditioning. What we should do, as you're saying, Tony, stop sometimes and say, why do I do what I'm doing? And that is, some of us don't want to do that. It's the same thing with the Bible too. You know, sometimes we get scriptures and we just read it and memorize it and say, oh, whatever, and that's what the Bible says. But did the Bible say that? You know, if we go back to it and reread it several times, and many times, sometimes we'll find lots of truth that we did not see in the first and second and third and fourth reading. Right? So, yes, conditioning can be good, but we should stop sometimes and say, why do I do what I'm doing? Because society says it? Or is it because it makes sense? Right? And that's what we need to do. Culturally, we are indoctrinated, and nothing is wrong with that to an extent. Cross of Lorraine. Got you, Tony. Surely you God blessed people who committed those sins with a reason, of course. He blessed nobody who committed sin. Thank God he's protecting you, even though you don't admit that he exists. So thank him for doing that, Pedro Jamal. Science is to be questioned, not absolute. Science is never questioned for the most part. Right? That it should, and I like what you're saying, should be questioned, but it's often not questioned. Is the theory of evolution questioned? No. And you can't question it in school. Was the COVID vaccine questioned? No. Are some of the protocols that they have in the hospitals, you know, that they're using on patients questioned? No, because they say the science has said it, right? So science is a religion too, by the way, okay? Because it's whatever the scientists say, and the mainstream scientists say that. Do you know that sometimes many scientists, well, not sometimes, all the times, there are lots of scientists who don't agree with scientific discoveries, and they just have to be silent because the people who are the most popular speakers and personalities, they have to what? They have to. Religion, the Bible says, Pedro Jamot, that you should what? Prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. That was what the scientists learned from the Bible and decided to question science. Before the Enlightenment, you could not question science. Right? So all this questioning, Pedro Jamot, came from the Enlightenment of the people who started reading their Bibles and questioning things in the Bible. because they were questioning the Bible according to what the teachings of Roman Catholicism and the teachings of Lutheranism and all that stuff. Why do you think we have so many denominations in the Christian faith? Because people were questioning and say, oh, yeah, they were right here, but here, no. And another one went and they reread and they moved on and formed another sect because they were questioning. They were questioning, and that came out of Bible reading. It did not come from science. Questioning did not come from tradition of science. Before the Western world and the Protestant Reformation, nobody could question science. Okay? So don't fool yourself, Pedro DeMott, and think that because you inherited a system in which we are questioning it, and we can, to some extent, question it, that it has always been the case. It was never always the case. Just like we talk about freedom of expression. Freedom of expression was never always the case. You could not challenge your government. You had to do what the government said. Even in Egypt, even in Babylon, even in Medo-Persia, even in Greece and the Roman Empire, the United States, even in Britain, even in Germany, the United States was that country that believed in it. And to an extent, they also challenged, but to a great extent, they sort of enforced it. Okay? And that's why slavery eventually was banished from there, because people challenged it using their freedom of expression. But what if they didn't have that? Slavery would still be in the United States of America. Right? So speak against the Bible and the principles and the culture of questioning that the Bible gave to us, and you will find yourselves in enslavement again. The cross of Lorraine, a vertical pillar intersected, that's Tony saying, by two horizontal bars, is closely linked to the heritage of the medieval and Masonic Knights Templar. They're all connected. When you look at Babylon, that's why we have to study the system of Babylon. And when you read, and I want to read it for you so we can end this live session, Pedro DeMott, if you don't realize that the Bible is so on point, right? Not that I want to tell you to follow. You don't have to follow it, because God doesn't, force anybody to do what they don't want to do. But the fact is that this is so, when you look at what the Bible is saying, you cannot but see that this book is inspired. Look at Revelation 18. And I want to share my screen as we end our live, and what it says about Babylon and what is happening in Babylon. And you can't see that this is a system that is controlled. Let me get it here. Let me get it here. Revelation 18. Let me put it on the screen. I'm trying to put it on the screen so that you can see it, because we don't want to indoctrinate anybody here. We want them to read for themselves. And that is the whole thing. It's coming on the screen. Wow. Okay, let me read it for myself, because it's Revelation 18. If you have it there on your thing, I can't. Let me put myself on the screen, because it's probably, I'm not on the screen. Am I on the screen? No, I'm not on the screen. Not going. Oh, it's there now. It's there now. All right, so we have here in Revelation 18, it says here, and these things I saw another angel, and after these things rather, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And I cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And I'm saying that all of them are committing fornication, which means therefore that they are a part of the system. Fornication here means that they do not want the truth and that they are not single-minded for the truth. They are part of that system in which everybody believes the same thing, or they have diversity of views, but they belong to the same system. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants, the business, the corporations of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Okay, so all of these things, as we're saying, the kings of the earth have committed fornication and died and lived deliciously. So they're wealthy, right? They've lived deliciously. They're wealthy people with her, but they shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. So God is going to destroy this system eventually, right? We can't destroy the system because the system is much bigger than we are. It's much more gigantic. It's supernatural, if you will, and we have to be able to allow God to take care of things. All right, so let me just read you a thing, and we are going to end the program now. So in 1635, Babylon ain't existed. Keep your faith, personal, and live. What is 1635? What you have to understand is that this is spiritual Babylon. Okay, this is what we call spiritual Babylon. So you have metaphoric Babylon, if you want to call it that, and you have literal Babylon. All right, so that is what you've got to understand. This is not coming from, by the way, from Ellen G. White. This is coming from, if you look at the Protestant the Reformists, again, you've got to read, Pedro. If you read Martin Luther, not Junior, but Martin Luther of the Reformists, and you read all of those reformers, okay, from the Protestant Reformation, and they were clear. Right? They were clear that the beast of Revelation, the Babylon, spiritual Babylon, was the Roman Catholic papacy, and that is why they founded the Protestant Reformation. So that's a lot of things that we have to learn. You know, we have to learn correct, metaphorically. It's not literal. That's why you have to read. Everything in Revelation is not. Some things are literal, just like when you read a poem, not everything in the poem is metaphorical, but you have to decide which is literal and which is metaphor. And that's why you have to read. And the Bible is the book, the literature book of all books. If you read it, your thinking will be elevated. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you in another live session when we will discuss another important topic. See you on another one. Ciao.